Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our participants from different time zones. Let's begin the day with a prayer. For leading the prayer, I invite Sister Antonita.
Welcome, Holy Spirit. Welcome, Holy Spirit. Be here with your presence. Fill me with your power. Live inside of me. Welcome, Holy Spirit. Be here with your presence. Fill me with your power. Live inside of me. You are the living water, never trying for day. Comforter and counselor, take complete control. Welcome, Holy Spirit. Be here with your presence. Fill me with your power. Live inside of me.
Thank you, Sister. A hearty welcome to the second day of the 3 days international webinar series in social security and legal aspects in disability management, organized and conducted by Sneha Sadan College of Special Education, Angamaly, in collaboration with Rehabilitation Council of India. On the day 2 of the webinar, we have 3 sessions scheduled. The first session for the day is on rights, funding, and service in the United States for children with disability. At 11 a.m. IST, we have our second session on creative solutions to overcome legal hurdles for the differently abled. And at 1 p.m. IST, we will have the sessions on UNCRPD. Before we begin, allow me to remind you to mute your microphones throughout the session. Keep your questions to the end of each session. And please make sure to send the filled Google evaluation forms before the next session begins, which will be sent to you after each session. Once again, dear delegates, kindly mute your microphones as we enter the first session, and please stay muted throughout the session. Our speaker for this session on rights, funding, and service in the United States for children with disability is a speech-language pathologist, industry historian, global connector, and technology entrepreneur based in the USA. Building on 16 years of clinical experience and a lifetime of entrepreneurship, she focuses on supporting disability-focused thought leaders and creating digital products that make a difference in the global special education ecosystem. We are humbled and extremely happy to have associated with Ms. Mei-Ling, co-founder and chief partnership officer, Exceptional Learning, a brand of Verge Learning, California, USA. In her role, she facilitates national and international partnership with disability experts to support the creation of professional developmental courses, digital services, and virtual therapy. In addition, after publishing 3 Amazon best-selling books in 18 months, Ms. Mei-Ling continues to spotlight industry leaders on her Exceptional Learning podcast, now in its 4th year, reaching over 25,000 global listeners. Ms. Mei-Ling is passionate about helping parents, educators, therapists, and people with disabilities to expand on their creative ideas and achieve success in their disability-focused offerings. Ma'am, a hearty welcome to you. Thank you for taking out the time from your busy schedule to talk to our participants. You may take over the session now, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that very warm welcome. My name is Mei-Ling Chan, and I would like to thank Sneha Sadan College of Special Education and the organizers of this international conference for inviting me today. Thank you for having me as part of this.
Thank you for coming, ma'am. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, let me begin. Are you able to see my slides?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, then we'll start. Let's see. So thank you for the introduction. Like I said, my name is Mei-Ling Chan. I am a speech language pathologist in the United States. I am based in Phoenix, Arizona, and our company, Exceptional Learning, is based in California, but we work with people all over the world. I'm also co-founder and chief partnerships officer with our company. And then I have been a speech language pathologist for over 16 years now, and I have experience in all different areas of clinical services. So today we're going to talk about rights, funding, and services in the United States for children with disabilities. Quoting from a movement perspective by Arlene Mayerson, it's important to point out that, quote, the ADA story began a long time ago in cities and towns throughout the United States when people with disabilities began to challenge societal barriers that excluded them from their communities, and when parents of children with disabilities began to fight against the exclusion and segregation of their children. It began with the establishment of local groups to advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. It began with the establishment of the independent living movement, which challenged the notion that people with disabilities needed to be institutionalized and which fought for and provided services for people with disabilities to live in the community. So the United States experienced an enormous shift in culture and ideology. One of the first significant media pieces to establish awareness of the inequities and dismissive culture towards people with disabilities was created by Geraldo Rivera in 1972. He completed and shared The Last Disgrace, a documentary of the Willowbrook State School. The expose revealed gruesome conditions and neglected mentally disabled children. This 27-minute and 20-second film is now included in certification programs for disability services and care providers. I'll share a few moments of the film to provide you with an understanding of the depth and despair that these children were experiencing, and to provide a baseline knowledge of where the US needed to begin changing their culture and approach to supporting people with disabilities. I also share my personal experience that I have seen this video probably about 20 times in my career, because as I said, it's included in many of the certification programs, and you are required to sit through the entire video every time that you're renewing a certification.
I visited the State Institution for the Mentally Retarded, and I think particularly at Willowbrook that we have a situation that borders on a snake pit, and that the children live in filth, but many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower. There's very little future for the children or for those who are in these institutions. Both need a tremendous overhauling. I'm not saying that those who are the attendants there or the ones that run the institution are at fault. I think all of us are at fault. And I think it's just it's long overdue that something be done about it.
It's been more than 6 years since Robert Kennedy walked out of one of the wards here at Willowbrook and told newsmen of the horror he'd seen inside. He pleaded then for an overhaul of a system that allowed retarded children to live in a snake pit. But that was way back in 1965, and somehow we'd all forgotten. I first heard of this big place with the pretty sounding name because of a call I received from a member of the Willowbrook staff, Dr. Michael Wilkins. The doctor told me he'd just been fired because he'd been urging parents with children in one of the buildings, building number 6, to organize so they could more effectively demand improved conditions for their children. The doctor invited me to see the conditions he was talking about, so unannounced and unexpected by the school administration, we toured building number 6. The doctor had warned me that it would be bad. It was horrible. There was one attendant for perhaps 50 severely and profoundly retarded children, lying on the floor naked and smeared with their own feces. They were making a pitiful sound, the kind of mournful wail that it's impossible for me to forget. This is what it looked like. This is what it sounded like, but how can I tell you about the way it smelled? It smelled of filth, it smelled of disease, and it smelled of death. We've just seen something that's probably the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. Is that typical of ward life?
Yes, there are 5,300 patients at Willowbrook, which is the largest institution for the mentally retarded in the world. The ones that we saw were the most severely and profoundly retarded. There are thousands there like that, not going to school, sitting on the ward all day, not being talked to by anyone, only 1 or 2 or 3 people to take care of 70 people on the ward, sharing the same toilet, contracting the same diseases together. 100% of patients at Willowbrook contract hepatitis within 6 months of being in the institution. Most patients at some time in their life have parasites. The incidence of pneumonias is greater than any other group of people that I think exist in this country. Trauma is severe because these patients are left together on a ward, 70 retarded people, basically unattended, fighting for a small scrap of paper on the floor to play with, fighting for the attention of the attendants who are overworked, trying to clean them, feed them, clothe them, and if possible, pay a little attention to them and work with them and develop their intelligence. But what in fact happens is that they go downhill.
So as shocking as that video is, it is important for us to know where our history is, where we came from. This video is available on YouTube if anybody wants to watch the video in its entirety. Let's go to the next one. Okay. So as you can see, the picture that we're showing here now is a far cry from where we were in the US in the 70s. And now we are focused on a community where all lives matter and the individual's ability to live an independent and full life is the highest priority. So let's take a look at the additional milestones that have occurred over the years in the United States. From a legal perspective, a profound and historic shift in disability public policy occurred in 1973 with the passage of Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. It was the first disability rights law to be enacted in the US, prohibiting the discrimination of people with disabilities in any federal funded program. It was modeled after previous laws which banned race, ethnic origin, and sex-based discrimination by federal fund recipients. For the first time in the United States, people with disabilities were included in the recognition that their inferior social and economic status was a result of societal barriers and prejudices, not a consequence of the disability itself. Congress took the responsibility to enact legislation to eradicate the future of discriminatory policies and practices. So this was a huge movement for us, and the 504, this Section 504 is referred to today, and I'm going to share with you how important it was. So from that, we have prohibited discriminatory acts in service to people with disabilities. And this is denying service availability, accessibility, delivery of services, and even in administrative activities and responsibilities. This was something that was never even focused on prior to the 504. And unfortunately, now that you've seen the Willowbrook video, you can see that there were no government controls or rules preventing that type of situation. Also that year, the National Council on Disability was established by the 95th Congress in Title IV of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It was initially an advisory board within the Department of Ed. However, in 1984, it was transformed into an independent agency by the Rehabilitation Act amendments of 1984. The National Council on the Handicapped is comprised of 15 members appointed by the President of the United States and confirmed by the Senate. In 1986, the National Council on Disability proposed the first comprehensive equal opportunity law in response to a specific statutory mandate that the council, quote, assess the extent to which federal programs provide incentives or disincentives to the establishment of community-based services for handicapped individuals, promote the full integration of such individuals into the community, in schools, and in the workplace, and contribute to the independence and dignity of such individuals, and recommend to the President and Congress legislative proposals for increasing incentives and eliminating disincentives in federal programs based on the assessment made. It included a listing of federal programs serving people with disabilities prioritized according to federal budgets, designed to improve the ability of persons with disabilities to live with dignity and as independently as possible within their communities. In 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act was signed. This was on November 29th, 1975 by President Gerald Ford. This was referred to as the EHA. The EHA guaranteed a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE, to each child with a disability in every state and locality across the country. This has become a fundamental milestone for providing all children with disabilities and educational support. We refer to this often in the school system in saying that every student should have equal rights and access to education, and we refer to it as FAPE. Unfortunately, although attorneys in the Office for Civil Rights drafted Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 to protect people from discrimination and sent them to the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, HEW, no regulations were actually approved from 1973 to 1977. Disability rights organizations advocated for the regulations and staged protests and grassroots campaigns to increase public awareness in the hopes of gaining support. However, concerns about costs and enforcement and pushback from affected organizations such as hospitals, universities, state and local government entities like post offices provided major roadblocks to progress. In addition, the HEW Secretary Joseph Califano was tasked with studying the Section 504 regulations and established a task force that did not even include anyone with a disability. So they refer to these almost as the dark years, because although the mandates were in place and things had already been written and had been presented, there was no forward progress. This is very important for me to point out because we're talking about a time when people were finally being recognized for the inequities and the discrimination, and yet they weren't able to move forward with government support. And so on April 5th, 1977, during the early days of Jimmy Carter's presidency, disability activists nationwide demonstrated at health education and welfare offices, demanding that Section 504 regulations be signed. Sit-ins lasted at several of the offices across the country, most notably in San Francisco. While many of the protests did disperse after a few hours, the peaceful protests in San Francisco lasted 25 days. 25 days of people with disabilities inside this building. On April 28, 1977, Califano signed the regulations. As a result of this movement, they were showing that people with disabilities were not to be ignored, and their efforts created partnerships that would later be the foundation to the drafting and implementation of the American Disabilities Act in 1990. Senator Hubert Humphrey, who had attempted in earlier years to pass civil rights legislation covering people with disabilities, said about Section 504, "The time has come to firmly establish the right of disabled Americans to dignity and self-respect as equal and contributing members of society, and to end the virtual isolation of millions of children and adults.
That each of us
Sorry.
made a commitment that we.
So I'd like to share this short video of the participants recalling that day. So these are people who participated in the sit-in and what it meant to them to be a part of the movement. So they're looking back. This was recorded a couple years ago. Okay, and let's see, I want to get to.
You know, the image of disabled people up until that time had been that we were all little pathetic children with individual tragedies and nothing much you could do about it, and who would discriminate against the poor little person. Well, none of that was true. And it was our chance to show that we were adults and that we could act in a political way.
In front of the building were just a lot of people. And I think Judy Heumann and somebody else was talking about the 504 regulations. They were talking about what it could do for disabled persons, but they were talking about how the government could help disabled persons or how we could help bring upon our independence for civil rights for the disabled. And after her talk there, I really decided, well, you know, we need to do this.
504 was successful because it was people's ability to work. It was people's ability to get an education, to be independent in a career, and to live independently that was on the line. People knew, disabled people knew, that if they didn't fight for this, they would be living in nursing homes all their life. Imagine being 24 years old and living in a nursing home.
I think we felt exhilarated by the turnout. And then when we got inside the building, everybody was completely turned on to the idea that we have civil rights and we're not going to let them take them away. Realizing that we have a law and we're protected, and nobody cares enough to even know what the law is, and they're responsible for carrying it out. I think that was when people just got furious and decided, yes, you know, we're going to stay here.
I stayed in the protest because I felt so strongly about what they were doing. I remember stories of my father saying his grandfather moved to America and had to face signs in windows, Nina, no Irish need apply. And I remember my parents just kind of instilling this sense of social justice, like that's just unfair. That's unfair not only to Irish people, that kind of thing is unfair to anybody. So I think I grew up with that kind of orientation. And then as a person who's coming out and grappling with my own sexuality, you know, that it was something that was important to me personally.
I don't think it was ever voiced or we raised our hands or anything like that, but each of us made a commitment that we were going to be in there forever. I mean, we were just going to be in there. And if we starved in there, that's what was going to happen. If we got sick in there, we'd get sick in there. If whatever was going to happen, we were just going to be in there until this thing got resolved.
I was like most of the people at the sit-in, nothing special. You know, we look at people like Judy Heumann and Kitty Cohn and we think about, oh my God, and I couldn't do that. And yeah, you're right, you couldn't do that kind of leadership, but most of the people there were ordinary people.
I'm not special. Anybody can do what those of us in the 504 demonstration did. Anybody can do it. You can make change for the better.
I have absolute faith that a generation will come forward, and it will be a generation of young people who will come forward and seize this situation by the throat and take the next big step, if not the ultimate step, in transforming and revolutionizing these societies, this society particularly, so that no one is hungry and no one is oppressed.
First, my mom said, don't do it. My little boy said, stay. my concerts that stay, help all the people.
What issues today make you, patient, know more?
Okay. I think it's always great to hear right from people. I love the power of video. Okay, go to the next one. So after the law was passed, access to public buildings and transportation had to be addressed and became foundational for future generations. So there are a couple of great photos here. One is access onto trains, buses, anything that was publicly funded. Here is the access ramp that you'll see a lot now for hospitals and any of the state and federal buildings. And then, of course, having handicap transportation for children with disabilities. And so this is a perfect example of a student with a wheelchair has to be, she has to be able to get to school. And so the buses then needed to be changed so that anyone who needed to be able to get up into that first step had the ability to. So before the 504, there was none of this. Separate but equal is a quote, and it was a legal doctrine in the United States constitutional law, which was passed back in 1890, according to which racial segregation did not necessarily violate the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which nominally guaranteed equal protection under the law to all people. This was expanded to include children in schools with disabilities and resulted in millions of children being secluded from their peers and denied access to general education teachings. The law required that all children receive the same rights and access to education as typical peers. Because discrimination existed in employment, technology, education, housing, access to equal Medicare, and many other areas, major attention now needed to be paid to these areas, as there was now a starting point with specific guidelines to be interpreted and upheld. So before the 504, again, there were all of these areas where if someone had a disability, they did not have access to a certain job, or they did not, they weren't able to speak on the phone. So that's where technology came in. They actually did a lot of work so that people are now able to use telephones if they aren't able to access their telephone in the regular way. So it's TTY, it's called. And then housing, they would come up to a building and were not able to access it. Or maybe when they were in the actual building, they weren't now able to get into the restroom. And then also for medical care, defining what qualifies as a disability. The most important achievement of Section 504 is the establishment of non-discrimination as a fundamental right for all people with disabilities. But who qualifies for these rights? The 504 established the three-pronged legal definition of disability as opposed to a medical one. The definition includes people with physical or mental impairments that substantially limit one or more major life activities, those who have a record of such an impairment, and those who are regarded as having such an impairment. So major life activities include caring for oneself, walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, working, performing manual tasks, and learning. In 1986, the National Council on Disability, an independent government agency, issued a report that highlighted the many gaps in federal law that made full participation in society and equal opportunities for employment impossible for many disabled Americans. In September 1988, over 700 parents of children with disabilities, advocates, and adults with a wide variety of disabilities, including blindness, deafness, Down syndrome, and HIV infection, tested about architectural and communication barriers and the pervasiveness of stereotyping and prejudice during a joint hearing held before the Senate Subcommittee on Disability Policy and the House Subcommittee on Select Education. Following the hearing, Senator Kennedy, chair of the Labor and Human Resource Committee, Senator Harkin, chair of the Subcommittee on Disability Policy, and Representative Owens of the House Subcommittee on Select Education confirmed that a comprehensive disability civil rights bill would be a top priority for the next Congress. Finally, the American Disabilities Act, ADA, was signed into law on July 26, 1990 by President George H.W. Bush. This landmark civil rights legislation increased access and opportunity for people with disabilities across community life, including employment. The ADA, as we refer to it, changed the definition of the term disability by clarifying and broadening it, which in turn increased the number and types of person protected under the ADA and other federal non-discrimination laws. The underlying principle was to extend the basic civil right protections to minorities and women to people with disabilities. So from that, in 1991, I believe that was 1990, my apologies, Title I was passed, which prohibits workplace discrimination. Title II secures access to services provided by schools. Title III requires public accommodations, and Title IV provides telecommunications services. In 2010, Rosa's law passed, and it required the removal of the term mental retardation from federal health, education, and labor policy, and replaces the term with people first language like individual with an intellectual disability. Named for Rosa Marcelino, a girl with Down syndrome who was 9 years old when it became law, and who, according to President Barack Obama, worked with her parents and her siblings to have the words mentally retarded officially removed from the Health and Education Code in her home state of Maryland. Mainstream culture has now worked to change the words used within daily conversation, replacing retarded with mentally disabled or intellectually challenged. You will often hear younger generations correcting adults who use the outdated term retarded by saying things like, "Dad, we don't use that word anymore." We actually are very forward thinking, and people are now referring to themselves as a person with autism. However, there are people who do feel comfortable with the term autistic. So as a speech language pathologist, language is very, very important. And so this was a really important movement for us to be able to move forward, not only in how we're referring to people, but how the words are being used in actual policy and also historically. As one of the 10 major areas of focus, the National Council on the Handicapped focuses on educating children with disabilities. The Council makes legislative recommendations regarding educational opportunities for children with disabilities. These recommendations respond to the need for special education and related services during infancy, the need for educating children with special needs in regular education facilities, and the need to assess progress made since the enactment of the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. Just focusing on children, the way that we can offer support is through a number of funding methods. One is cash payments. This is available through programs which are also dependent on the income level of the family. This includes Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, and Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. There's also temporary assistance for needy families and supplementary nutrition assistant programs, and also veterans pensions. Healthcare is also available through Medicaid, which is funded by both the federal and state governments, and this program varies greatly depending on location. In most states, if a child with disabilities receives Social Security, he or she is automatically qualified for Medicaid. CHIP is the Children's Health Insurance Program and provides comprehensive health coverage, including dental, to individuals under 19 whose families can't afford private insurance, but whose incomes are too high for Medicaid. A lot of times, families really struggle to find what we call almost the sweet spot where they will be able to qualify for these different funding levels. And they do have to consider what their income is. So if they are not making enough to qualify for the higher level, they may want to do things with their employment in order to qualify. It's very difficult, especially families that have more than one child with a disability. So Medicaid or CHIP that covers almost half of all of the US children with special health care needs, though the share varies by state. And these children are more likely to be low income, a member of a racial or ethnic minority group, and younger than those children covered by private insurance alone. Private insurance is typically acquired through full-time employment, so that can be included. Or if you are a self-employed person, you can also acquire your own private insurance. It's very expensive. To understand which states offer the best disability benefit programs, you should first be aware that some states do not offer any supplementary funds in addition to what is provided by the federal government. These states include Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, and West Virginia. So in addition to considering your employment, families also need to consider where they live. Of the states that do offer supplements to Social Security disability benefits, there are a few that offer somewhat higher than average benefit payment amounts, although individual payment amounts will vary depending on a claimant's specific living situation, household income, and any cost of living adjustments. The highest paying states for SSI benefits as of 2022 are New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, New Hampshire, and Maryland. Grants are also available from both private and government funders. They will typically pay for training, equipment, or modification, such as widening doors to the bathrooms or providing a ramp to the front door. Application processes will require proof of the disability and may include copies of the physician's evaluations, proof of Social Security disability certification, and assessment of the impact of the disability on daily life. Federal grants are typically for accessibility and training funds rather than responding to specific individual needs. There's also grants directly to states, and nonprofits can achieve grants to support their foundation. And sometimes individuals can receive direct grants through local community programs and occasionally from a corporation. Parents can access additional coverage through their personal health insurance, typically acquired as a benefit of full-time employment with a company or as a sole proprietor, but this is usually very expensive. So the benefits of full-time employment with insurance really can help a family to be able to provide additional services to what is covered through the school. But they still need to come, it's called out of pocket, to be able to meet the minimum requirements. So a family might have, let's say, a $10,000 minimum requirement. So they would have to pay out of pocket for up to that amount of the services. And then after that, they would be able to get coverage. Or there may be what they call a copay. So the services cost, let's say, $100, and the parent needs to pay $25 for every time that they go. But for these specialized services, they still also need to have an evaluation and by a doctor, and they need to have, I can't think of the word, prescriptions, thank you, for these services so that they are covered by the insurance. And the insurance can deny. They also have to show progress towards the goals. And so it's not something that just because you have insurance, you will definitely have these additional services. So these typical state services that are provided are behavioral health, day support, employment services, home health aid, home modifications, home nursing, housing opportunities, in-home support services, and then therapies, which we refer to as occupational, physical, speech, and vision, and then transportation, medical, and non-emergency. I've worked with many families who really benefit from the home health aid, where, where someone can come into the home and help support just taking care of that child with a disability for a certain number of hours. And the number of hours are determined from a home evaluation from their therapy team. So say someone with a child with severe autism may qualify for 5 to 10 hours of support during the week. So someone will come to their home and they don't have to pay for it. And that person will then do tasks of daily living with the child, helping them to dress, helping them to eat breakfast, while the mom and the dad can tend to their other children. They can also help to get the student on and off the bus, anything that is within activities of daily life. And then also for home nursing, we have children who are medically fragile. Some of them cannot attend school, and so school literally comes to them, but the home nursing will help with maybe trach and vent support, providing bolus food during the day, changing them. So all of these things also help the parents so that they can focus on other things in the home. And then occupational, physical, speech, and vision therapy, they are all designated a certain number of hours. So they might be given 1 hour per week in the home. And they can be there at the same time now, but there was a time when you could not have 2 therapies at the same time. But now they're seeing how valuable it is to have co-treating. Okay. So Child Find IDEA requires that all children with disabilities birth through 21 residing in the state, including children with disabilities attending private schools, regardless of the severity of their disability, and who may be in need of special education and related services, must be identified, located, and evaluated by the public agency responsible, and a practical method developed and implemented to determine which children with disabilities are currently receiving needed special education and related services. This is really important, and I know it's a lot of words, but I put it up there and I read it because this is where all of the school districts in the United States start. And it is so important that we have an early detection program. It has been in place since I believe the early 80s now. I'm sorry, I don't have a date for you, but what this does is helps to identify and bring children into the system as early as possible so that we can start to provide early intervention services. Some states are better than others with this, but we have found that this has helped with language and the foundations for literacy, just so many things, and even being able to eat, because a lot of times we have students that are coming from low-income families. And so the earlier we get them into these identified programs, the earlier they can come into the state-funded nutrition program. And so they may come in and now have breakfast, a full breakfast, where they might not be actually having that in their homes. And so this has been a really important milestone for the US to be able to instate this across the country. More than 6.8 million children ages 3 through 21 receive special education and related services each year in the United States. Each of these children receives instruction that is specially designed to meet his or her unique needs that result from having a disability, and to help the child learn the information and skills that other children are learning in the general education curriculum. So we refer to this as the IEP, the Individual Education Plan. Implementing the IEP is a requirement of Part B of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is IDEA, A multidisciplinary team works together on an independent education plan that is truly designed uniquely for the student. So this has become more and more stringent over the years, that as we create this multi-page document, some people's documents can be probably 50, 60 pages long. We are not allowed to copy and paste verbiage from other documents. So there may be carrier phrases or areas that we typically use, but there are areas that have to be 100% unique to that student and has to show that I, as the therapist or the psychologist who is working with the student, has created something that is very, very specific to the person that it is specified for. So the people on this team can be the student as appropriate. I, as a speech language pathologist, have had a number of times I've had my student attend. So if they're in maybe 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and higher, if they wanted to come to their meeting and they have something to add, or they want to request not to come to therapy anymore because they feel that it's taking them away from their time with their peers, which is totally possible. I do have them come and they will actually sign their IEP. Their regular education teacher should be there. Some students have many teachers, so they may go to several different classrooms in a day. And so one teacher is typically designated as the IEP representative. And so they will go and represent the other teachers. And so they will meet with the other team teachers before they come to the meeting. Then we have a school system representative, which is usually from the special education district level. And then they might have a transition services agency. This is when our students are starting to age out of school. And school can go up to 21 or 22 in the United States, depending on the state. So we do have people that can then help them to decide what happens after they graduate. You know, we'd like to get them into a day program or an independent work type of program. The parents are always a part of the team, and we cannot hold the meeting if the parents are not present, either in person or via video conference or telephone conference. And then they can also bring someone. It says others with knowledge or special expertise. It can be an advocate. So there is a very large community in the United States for people who are, their only job is an advocate. So they are very, very familiar with the IEP process and with the government laws and the regulations and what is demanded and right for a student. And so they come and they advocate on the part of the student and the parents, because many times we have parents who are very not knowledgeable of what their rights are and what their students' rights are. And sometimes they are bilingual, and so we may need a translator there. So that translator is working to translate the paperwork and the language of the team, and then also the discussion of what everyone is talking about. So we may have someone who's just emigrated from another country and their student has been identified. And so this whole process is very, very new to them. So we want to have as many people as possible on the parents' team to be able to support them to make their decisions. We also have the person who can interpret evaluation results. So there are certain evaluations that need to be completed a minimum of every 3 years. And we need to have someone who is designated as the person who can answer any questions related to the results that show up in that report, because a lot of times it's a lot of charts and data. And so we want the parent to be able to be as knowledgeable and understanding the results of those evaluations. And then we have a special education teacher who is working with that student on the team. So I've had, I actually did a poll, and the most people that they've had in an IEP meeting for one student that I saw in my poll was 30, which is a lot of people. So that's not that they were all in the room. They could have also been on conference, telephone conference, through Zoom, but they had 30 people in one child's meeting. Sorry. A child may require any of the following related services in order to benefit from special education. Related services as listed under IDEA include, but are not limited to, audiology services, counseling services, early identification and assessment of disabilities in children, medical services, occupational therapy, orientation and mobility, parent counseling and training, physical therapy, psychological services, recreation, rehabilitation, counseling, school health services, social work services, speech language pathology, and transportation. So this gives you another idea of how that meeting may have gotten up to 30 people, because someone from each of these categories could have been represented in that meeting. So LRE is the least restricted environment. This is the right to be educated in the least restrictive environment in the schools, and refers to the integration and inclusion of students with disabilities in general education settings, so where typical peers are. And I'm going to quote this from IDA. To the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities, including children in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with children who are non-disabled, and that special classes, separate schools, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular education environment occurs only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. Again, a lot of words, and I read it out loud because every word is so important. And we have referred to this quote so many times in our IEP meetings. For example, we will say that the section here, that special classes, separate schools, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular education environment occurs only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes, so regular is the general education, is with supplementary aids and services. Supplementary is a whole enormous area of special education. And now that we've gone through the pandemic, there are a lot of digital products that are now available to be able to accommodate students to be able to be in a general education class. So we have a supplementary work that they can do. So we're taking something that may be 5th grade level, but the student is cognitively at a 2nd grade level. So we take that 5th grade piece and we modify it, and we do things that can help them. So maybe they need a special pencil so that they can hold grip, so they can hold their pencil. That would be a supplementary aid. And they can now perform the activities, maybe 2 out of the 5 activities that is their grade level. So this is a quote that is so important to us, because as therapists, we are making sure that everything that we do is helping them to achieve that equal level of education as their general education peers. So there is a continuum of supports, and placement should be least restrictive, but also most appropriate to that student's needs. IDEA mandates a continuum of alternative placements. There are a couple of different kinds. And so here is, the least, which is general education classroom. So they might come out of the classroom for consultation. They might come down to the speech therapy room for an hour and be with either one-on-one therapy or with, say, 3 other peers in a very small group for maybe 1 hour out of their day, and they might do that 1 to 2 times a week, and then they go back to their general education classroom. So this is the least restrictive. They might have accommodations where they don't come out of their classroom ever, but the occupational therapist has made sure that they have that pencil grip and they're seated a certain way, or they have a special chair that they can use. And so that is considered the therapeutic support that they're receiving within the general education classroom. Then we go into more restriction where they have support facilitation. So a teacher may come in, or a therapist may come into the classroom and be with them while they're actually in the classroom. So we would call that push in. And that's really another wonderful way to keep the student in there with their general education peers, and they're not missing out. And then the last one is specialized placement, where we are having them in a self-contained area. And self-contained would be, they really never leave their classroom, or only once in a while they'll leave this special classroom where there are other students with disabilities. Once in a while, we're able to take them and push them into a maybe lunch and a social group, or out on the playground with friends, but they have a therapist there with them to help them with social interactions. So these are referred to as resource room and self-contained. Okay. So experts divide the types of cognitive impairments into 4 different categories: mild, moderate, severe, and profound. So I'm going to go through each one of these pretty quickly. So mild is an IQ of 50 to 70, slower than typical in all developmental areas, no unusual physical characteristics, able to learn practical life skills, attains reading and math skills up to grade levels 3 to 6, able to blend in socially, and functions in daily life. About 85% of people with intellectual disabilities fall into the mild category and may even achieve academic success. A person can read but has difficulty comprehending what he or she's reading. For example, someone with a mild intellectual disability might be able to open a book and read it themselves. Moderate intellectual disability has an IQ of 35 to 49. They have noticeable developmental delays in speech or motor skills. They may have physical signs of impairment. They can communicate in basic, simple ways. They're able to learn basic health and safety skills and can complete self-care activities and possibly travel alone to nearby familiar places. People with moderate intellectual disability have fair communication skills, but cannot typically communicate on complex levels. They may have difficulty in social situations and problems with social cues and judgment. They can care for themselves, but they may need more instruction and support. They may live in independent situations, but still need support of a group. Let's see. Severe IQ is 20 to 34. They have considerable delays in development, understand speech, but little ability to communicate, able to learn daily routines, may learn very simple self-care, need direct supervision in social situations. About 3 or 4% of those diagnosed with intellectual disabilities fall into the severe category, and most people cannot successfully live in an independent living situation, and they will need a group home setting. Profound has IQ of less than 20, significant developmental delays in all areas, obvious physical and congenital abnormalities. They require close supervision, require an attendant to help in self-care activities. They may respond to physical and social activities, but they are not capable of independent living. So they typically depend on others for all aspects of day-to-day life and have extremely limited communication ability. So in the United States, the goal of all the supports and services being provided is to help people to live a full and productive life. We want them to be as independent as they can be, to obtain and retain employment, and to participate in family and community life, and ultimately to be happy. Here's the information to contact us for more information. You can email us at india@learnwithverge.com. And my email is mailing.chan@exceptionallearning.com. And I am available for any questions. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The session is open for questions. Delegates, you may please unmute to ask your questions, or you may type it in the chat for us to read. Delegates, please unmute to ask your questions. Ma'am, I was thinking about this as you were talking about what the American society was going through in terms of disability rights. Um, from your perspective, do you think the USA bylaw is fully inclusive? Uh, and are those provisions you were talking about fully in effect in the US?
The provisions in the schools are fully in effect, and it has definitely grown in the areas of employment. And even though the laws were there, it took years for employers to catch up and not discriminate on the basis of a disability. It's taken a long time for all public buildings, not federally funded, but just a public building, to be accessible. And there are still so many buildings that are not. It's unfortunate, but I hear of a lot of people who will show up for an interview and they can't go there because it doesn't have an elevator or it doesn't have a ramp. And so it is not pervasively accepted everywhere. So we're getting there. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and there, protesters going on still for, for these provisions to be in effect by the persons with disability. Are there still, are they still doing the part to make this in effect?
Yes, it's not as public as it used to be. The United States just went through a lot of different variations of All Lives Matter. We have a lot of groups now that are needing attention, and because they're minorities and that they are marginalized. And so, I'm in a lot of different disability groups, and they're saying that they've lost the spotlight, because of all of these other communities, like, just even having brown skin is a minority. So it's interesting because they almost need like a different way to gain that public attention again, but it's good and bad because all minority groups are gaining attention, like the LGBTQ groups. Again, Black Lives Matter, minorities. We're all raising our hands and saying that inequality is unacceptable. And so what we say is a lot in America is that rising tides raise all ships. And so hopefully, as all of these other minority groups are gaining attention and awareness, that is going to benefit all groups.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Delegates, are there any more doubts to be clarified? Are there any more questions? Before the session ends, can we all switch on our video camera so that we shall pose for a photograph? Delegates, please switch on your video cameras.
Wow, how beautiful. It's so nice to see everyone. Good morning. It is 10:30 at night for me here in Arizona.
Delegates, please switch on your video cameras. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for navigating us through what the American society had to go through in terms of rights for persons with disability. And it kind of, motivates us. So thank you so much for joining us, and we wish to see you again. Have a good night, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. You may lead the session now. Thank you. Bye. Dear delegates, we are moving on to the next session on creative solutions to overcome legal hurdles for the differently abled. To lead the session, we have Dr. Rajiv Thomas, an international motivational speaker, management expert, leadership transformational coach, and advisor with over 25 years of experience in a wide spectrum of business, consulting, training, coaching engagements, and various life-changing projects on social significance. Dr. Rajiv specializes in adapting and applying various popular management principles to overcome challenges that individuals face on an ongoing basis in the professional life, but also in their personal life. He is the founder and CEO of Warpers.com, founder of Hope Group of Educational Initiatives in India and overseas, and managing trustee of the Village of Hope Charitable and Educational Foundation. He was, until recently, the head of business planning at Qatar Foundation Education City in Doha, Qatar. He is also a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, one of the very few in India who has been trained on the diverse techniques and codes from the co-founders of NLP. He's an avid blogger, YouTuber, published author, holder of 2 Limca books of record entries, who believes in social change. With much delight, I invite Dr. Rajiv to take over the session. Sir, are you there?
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Welcome to our program.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. Actually,
it's our pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
I was attending the previous session as well, and it's an amazing amount of information that has been shared. And I understand that, when a lot of people are dumping a lot of information onto the attendees, sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming. So this session that I'm going to handle at present will be slightly different. There's not too much of theoretical information coming in, but it's more or less information from the perspective of a parent and a person who tried to implement some of the facilities and the rehabilitative opportunities for the individuals with disabilities, and had to face a lot of challenges. But we were able to overcome most of it. I understand that some of our participants still have their mics on, so I would request those who are not speaking at present to kindly turn off your mic so that there is no interruption or disturbance in the background, so the others will not be disturbed as well. Okay, so my story is going to be, so I'm going to use a story technique for today's session, and I'm going to give you some information regarding the path of life that I have gone through, and I'm sure that most of you will be able to relate to it. So if you just give me 1 second to set up my screen over here, we'll start off right away. Right. Can everybody see my screen now? Can you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's here.
Excellent. Excellent. So it's a very interesting concept now, because the time from 11:15 to 12 o'clock is something when everybody is a bit hungry, and our mind starts focusing on the lunch break. And I'm trying to go and keep you as entertained as possible, so I can give you some meaningful information without making it too overwhelmingly challenging with a lot of theoretical information. So I would start off by saying thanks a lot for the organizers of today's program, Sneha Sadan College of Special Education, for inviting me to say a few words and share my experience on how sometimes creative solutions can actually help us to overcome some of the legal hurdles in implementing programs for the differently abled. And to have this program in collaboration with the Rehabilitation Council of India, it's an amazing opportunity to come and speak to over 225 wonderful attendees who are currently logged in at the moment. So my name is Rajiv Thomas, and the introduction often makes it a bit challenging again for somebody like me to speak, because the bar is set very high. You know, there's a lot of things that I'm involved in, but I'm not going to be speaking about all that, but I would like to focus exclusively on one of the challenges that I encountered in my life, which I was able to utilize as an opportunity to create certain solutions for the differently abled children and the youth, not just in India, but also in other parts of the world. So I hope that this session will give you some practical tips on how you as practitioners and how you as special educators can actually influence change. And this is where the significance of all our learning comes in, because, you know, we can read a lot of theoretical stuff. We can read a lot of information on the legislations and on the principles and on the practices. But if we are unable to actually make that change, which is going to touch the life of at least one of those children who are in your care, then we have lost everything. So this is where I would like to start the story with. And I would like to take you back into the year 1996, which is when, that's me on the screen, by the way. I looked a lot much younger and handsomer at that time, I guess. But next to me is my loving wife and my first son, my eldest son, Steven. He was born on the 27th of December, 1996. In Kerala, incidentally. I know a lot of you are from Kerala and some of you from other parts of India and elsewhere in the world as well. So he was born in what is now popularly known as the Pushpagiri Medical Center in Tiruvalla. And that's his famous bed number 35 that he was born on. And of course, having a child in the family is an amazing opportunity. And it's an opportunity to celebrate. And being the first son of a family, especially, you know, being the first grandchild in my family and in my wife's family, obviously it was a moment of celebration and a lot of happiness. And Steven was born on 27th December 1996. And we were all extremely happy. And I saw the child in the hospital soon after he was born. And then I went back home because he was born kind of late in the night, early into the morning. And of course, I went back and slept and relaxed. And then the next day, when I visited the hospital, life was about to change, because it was not very happy moods that I saw in the hospital, because by then the doctors had come and seen the child. They had seen the mother, and after a few preliminary investigations, it was mentioned and indicated that Steven, my son, has Down syndrome. So as most of you know, Down syndrome is an intellectual challenge caused by the extra chromosome. And obviously at that time, as young parents, I did not know anything about Down syndrome. I did not know anything about disabilities. I did not know anything about people with challenges. So I mean, it was something that suddenly hit me out of the blue. Yeah, my wife, of course, she came from a medical background, and she was more qualified and educated to understand what was actually the significance of the diagnosis given to us by the doctors, and how in the future Steven would definitely face certain challenges in life, and we as a family would need to, be able to support him and back him up and to handle some of the issues that he would be encountering through life. So here comes a big challenge in front of very young parents and grandparents who absolutely also were lost because they didn't know what exactly to do. So it was a very dark moment for us. I mean, it is some. I mean, if I look back into my life and career, life has always been giving me new turns and twists here and there. And there is no meaning to why sometimes you end up with all the challenges. And why is it that God is always giving me these challenges? That kind of questions start coming up, and also the question about, why do we have this child in our family and why not somebody else? And then the parents, young parents, normally go through a stage of denial, and they start worrying about, well, it can't be happening to us. Maybe the doctors are wrong. Maybe their diagnosis is not right. And maybe they made a mistake. And, then we start getting extremely religious at times and they start praying reverently, saying, oh God, please, 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 this is not going to happen to us. And let's make sure that this is not true. And when I go back to see them next day, I hope the doctors will come back and say, oh, we are sorry, we made a mistake. Everything is fine. We really hope that things would suddenly change. And but the harsh reality is that that's not the way that things are going to be. And sometimes we have to see, how are we going to handle the situation from here onwards. Now, as most of you know, a couple of days ago, we had also celebrated the World Down Syndrome Day. Around the 21st of March is celebrated as the World Down Syndrome Day. And the theme for this year's celebrations in United Nations in Geneva was inclusion means. Okay, it's the hashtag inclusion means, which means it's all about how we can include these children with Down syndrome or other intellectually challenged children or any disabled children for that matter, differently abled, as our previous speaker was saying. So differently abled children in the field of education, how can we make sure that they have access to education? And inclusion in the field of health, how can we ensure that all the health facilities available to others are also available to these children? How can we include them, inclusion in the society, in the world around them, rather than excluding them out of all the activities? And we live in a very harsh society, and most of you would agree with me when I say that, today, even today, there is a lot of stigma around differently abled children. There is a lot of stigma that says that, oh God, this kid is differently abled, and I don't want my children to play with him or her, for that matter. Or maybe we don't invite these children to functions that happen in our places. Some parents are still hesitant to take these children and go to public functions or programs. This is the world that we live in. So how are we going to make sure that these children have access to inclusion in the society around us? And of course, if most of the children are trained adequately and they go through vocational programs or whatever, your differently able child may eventually be ready for employment. So how do we include them in the educational and the employment framework so that they can actually have some kind of a meaningful employment opportunities? And as the earlier speaker was also saying, many of these children, especially the ones with the mild to moderate intellectual challenges, with manageable behavioral problems or some physical challenges, can actually be trained to live and go and work in environments that are conducive for the normal people. So how do we do it? So this is a challenge that is faced not only by the parents, but the society as a whole. And we are all part of that. I mean, we can, as a big team of people over here, 223 on the screen at present, who can actually make a change, who can actually make a difference in the life of the people. And sometimes we have to remember that whenever life gives us certain challenges, it also gives us certain opportunities. Okay, and I'm also a motivational speaker. I do a lot of programs, and I will be flashing some of my contacts in the last slide. So if you want to check out some of my YouTube channels or my podcasts and things like that, these are all themes that I normally learned from my experience with my interaction with Stevin and with what life has given me. But what I learned, and I'm sure most of you will agree with me, is that when life gives you challenges, life will also give you opportunities. Okay, we have some participants still with their mics on. Maybe the admin can mute everybody else so that we don't have interruptions there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
you're doing it right.
We have opportunities that are given to us together with challenges as well. And in a few minutes from now, I will be explaining to you how we can come up with certain creative solutions to overcome some of these challenges that are thrown on us. Right. So what happened is, let me just progress the slide. There you are. So after every dark night, there will be a sunrise, right? How many of you agree with me? I'm sure most of you agree with me. So there is, after every dark night, there will be a sunrise. So we need to remain optimistic. Okay, we need to remain optimistic that we can actually find solutions to some of the challenges that we're facing. So what did we do? I mean, as parents of Steven, now I was employed overseas at that time. I was working in Saudi Arabia, and my son, obviously, he needed therapy. He needed early intervention. He needed speech intervention. He needed occupational therapy. He needed physiotherapy, and he needs special education. But the nearest facility that was available to us was around 350 kilometers away. So there was no way that I could drive on a daily basis to take him down to that particular city of Jeddah, which is on the other side of Saudi Arabia, to give him the facility and the training that he needs. So what do we do? I mean, we have two options here, right? We can remain stuck in the situation. And this is what happens when life throws challenges on us. It could be problems in your families. It could be problems on your financial side. It could be problems in your job. It could be interpersonal relationships in your houses. It could be with your spouses. It could be with your children, wherever it is. When you have a problem, we can either remain stuck on that problem or start looking for solutions and opportunities. So we started looking for opportunities as well. I mean, we were never told. I mean, nobody was there to guide us at that time to say, okay, why don't you try this, or why don't you try that, or why don't we had to do a lot of learning on our own. I'm talking about 26 years ago. My son now is 25 years old, right? And so we are talking about 25 years ago, where we did not have access to internet and Google and Siri and Alexa and everybody else to tell you things that you really want to know at your whim and fancy, at your beck and call. But that's the time when you had to really wait for sometimes a brochure to come to you from some kind of an institution overseas, which when you don't have them locally, so you would look for them abroad. And maybe the postal system takes you around 10 to 15 days before something reaches you. So there is a lot of time gap. There's a lot of delays that are involved in getting even information, basic information. So we were really stuck over there. And, then there is a way that the universe can actually build some kind of opportunities for you in the disguise of challenges. So the challenge that I faced was that we were having issues in the company that I was working in, where I was working for more than 7 years, and I was forced to move from there. So while I was having difficulties trying to get my son trained, I was having difficulties in the company. And then what happened is I started seeing an opportunity in a place called Qatar. And, the Qatar at that time, state of Qatar was just a very new country. People hadn't heard about it. They had a lot of gas reserves, but, it did not become so popular as it is now because of the FIFA World Cup that is going to take place over there in a few months from now. And with all the infrastructural changes and all that have happened, it's a beautiful place to be in at present. But at that time, nobody had heard about it. I'm talking about 25, 23 years ago. Okay. So when we researched this and we decided that we're going to move, I had got a job offer in Qatar, and I decided that we're going to move to Qatar. And I took my son and went over there. But when we went over there, once again, we found that the number of centers or number of facilities, unlike in India, where, in almost in every city, every town, you have special education facilities. You have either private run facilities or government run facilities or charitable organizations that are doing things, centers like the Sneha, Sadan, so many are available. But, right. We still have interruptions. So, but at that time, we could not have many centers over there in Qatar also. And we were finding it difficult to send him to the government facility because there was a huge waiting list. And at the same time, the private facility that was being run over there was extremely expensive for us. So there was no way that I could afford to send my son to there. So what do we do at this moment? So we are stuck as parents, and then we started talking about what is the opportunities, or what can we do about it? And then all of a sudden we decided that we are going to start something. Okay, so we said we were going to start a center for the children with special needs, and we came up with an idea of a not-for-profit activity that could be initiated. And we started something called Hope Qatar. Okay, I will come back to this a little bit more about the challenges and the problems that we faced regarding Hope Qatar, because that's the entire theme of my presentation today. So what are the challenges that you may face, and what are the practical solutions that you can implement, the creative solutions that you can implement to overcome some of these challenges? Why I would like to say this is because you as practitioners, you as parents, you as professionals in this area may be in a position to guide the parents, guide the people who want to make these things happen in the future. Okay, so you will be able to learn from the experience that we went through. And that's why when I was discussing with the organizers of the session, I said, look, I'm not in a position to say too much about the legal side or anything, but I can tell you a case study of how we actually went through some of these problems and how did we overcome them, so that you can benchmark or you can copy some of the things that we did and implement it elsewhere. Because at the end of the day, what we want is to make sure that every child who has disabilities, every child who needs special education or therapeutic services should have access to it. And nothing should stop them from getting those accesses. Because if we don't give them those opportunities, nobody's going to give it to them. So we started Hope Qatar, which actually is an acronym standing for Help, Opportunity, Participation, and Education for the individuals with special needs. That's our website address in case somebody wants to take down notes and then or take a screenshot and then check them out later. Feel free to do that, so you will get more idea about what we do over there. I don't want to spend too much time on that over here. So in the year 2016, we started Hope Qatar. So it's actually 16 years since we started the center over there. Okay. And one thing we realize is that, and I'm sure most of you would agree with me, is that many of the centers or many of the organizations that are set up for the differently abled are being triggered or initiated by parents of such children. Okay, many of these centers are being started by parents of such children, even India also, and anywhere around the world also. So when somebody starts something like that, there is normally a connection. And when I actually interview a lot of people for Hope and for the other projects that I have initiated here in India, which I will be speaking about in a few minutes from now, I ask them this question also, do you have a relationship in your family that actually encouraged you to take up this field? So you may have speech therapists sitting on this program today who are going for the speech therapy program and for who went in for that particular degree and for that study because there is a family relationship. It could be a sibling, it could be a cousin, it could be a parent, it could be a grandchild, or somebody in the close vicinity of you who may have a special needs. And that's what actually drives us to come forward and do something like this. You may have special educators over here who went into special education because of a family-related connection or something like that. So a lot of these centers today are being run by parents or siblings or well-wishers or neighbors or somebody who has a relationship with somebody who is a child or a youth with the disabilities. Okay, and this is exactly, I'm almost certain, I'm not having the opportunity to have a lot of interaction with the attendees today, but for want of time also. But at the same time, I'm sure that if I had asked this question, I would have seen a lot of yes, sir, coming up on the screen. So we started Hope Qatar in 2016. And then the next worry that comes into the mind of any parent like me is that what will happen to my child after I am gone, right? So what is going to happen to my son after we are gone? One day we all have to leave, right? I mean, we are not here forever. None of us is here forever. But with the medical facilities available today, with adequate healthcare available today, with the life expectancy that is available today, many of these children and youngsters with disabilities may outlive their parents. And this is a harsh reality. Now, you may have a very mildly challenged child who might be able to manage. You train them, you put them in the right social network, you have a good support system, and things may be beautiful. Like our previous presenter was speaking, in the United States of America, they have social systems, they have legal systems, they have a very well-designed support system to take care of such children. and such individuals even beyond the time of their parents. You heard about how they have support people coming into their houses, even to feed them, to dress them, to put them in the buses, to give the adequate free time to the parents so that they can actually have another life just beyond just taking care of this child. But what is the system in our India? I mean, in a place like India, we don't have something like that yet. Maybe with in the future, it might come up. Maybe some of the voluntary organizations are trying for it, but are we in a position to provide such services to each and every child in our area? Just think about our own district or our own states. We don't have such systems. So the parents are left to fend for themselves. The parents are left to take, most probably it is the mothers of the house or the sister of the child or somebody within the family who takes on the responsibility to be with this child, with this kid, and see them grow, watch them develop. But to what extent? Not always to be completely 100% independent. Like take the case of my son, Steven. I mean, he's always going to be partially dependent on somebody, because he cannot take certain decisions on his own. He has certain physical challenges which cause balancing issues, which could make him, which could endanger him if he were to venture out on his own. So as parents, we want to have a system that will take care of him, even beyond us. So then this worry starts hitting you. Most parents, especially once they start getting beyond 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And now I know a case of parents in Malaysia who have a disabled child, and the parents of father is in his late 90s and the mother is in her late 80s and the child is in his late 30s, and the mother is suddenly gone paralyzed and the father has nobody to take care of. And they have one brother who has his own commitments elsewhere. So he's unfortunately unable to be physically present to take care of this particular child. Who's going to take care of him after something happens to his parents? So the same thought comes to us. So then we decided that we would also initiate something called the Village of Hope Foundation, which is a charitable trust, which we established to try to take care of children and youngsters with disabilities beyond the time of their parents. Now, this is at the very initial stages. We haven't been able to make much progress on it yet, but that's something else that came up out of a personal need. And then I realized that in a place like India, many of these youngsters with disabilities are physically active. They may have intellectual challenges there, but physically active. But what kind of opportunities are actually available for them for their physical development? Like, to go to a gymnasium or a health club or something like that. So I came up with this concept of accessibility, which is actually in a very early stages, which is all about creating a series of gymnasiums around the whole of the country to start with sensitized people, sensitized trainers who are aware of how to handle individuals with disabilities, not just physical challenges, but also intellectual challenges. And if you see in a place like US or UK and France and all those places, they have very well-defined, customized facilities for the differently abled. But we don't have any in India. They could go to a regular gym, I guess, if they are willing, if they are able to do it. But imagine the sensitivity around the whole concept. The people over there may or may not even want that person in their midst. They may or may not want to interact with them. So such challenges are very much a reality in front of us. So what is the option available to try to create something? And I'm working on a project called Accessibility. And I also wanted to create another special school called Gurukulam, which I would not be talking about now. So these are some of the current projects that I'm having at hand. So to look at the case of Hope Qatar, the Center for Children with Special Needs in Doha, which is in the state of Qatar, we encountered certain challenges. So what are these challenges and how did we work around them? And that is the core of today's presentation for you. So first challenge that we would face over there was financial challenges. We simply don't have the money to set up something like that. Obviously, to establish a special education center, you require a minimum infrastructure. You require minimum staff. Okay. And there are certain legal requirements that you have to fulfill. And in a place like Qatar, the law is very different. Unlike in India, It's not very easy. I mean, I'm not saying that the law in India is very easy either, but in Qatar it's a lot more difficult. So to create a center like this, you need something called a paid up capital. You cannot go and start an NGO over there. Okay, start an NGO is a whole lot of different review system. You need to have X number of Qatari citizens on your board, and there should be scrutiny and evaluation and assessment and so many things that make it so difficult, legally so cumbersome process that makes it so difficult for you to establish a non-governmental organization, an NGO. So what are the other options available for us? We could probably go and register something called a training center for children with special needs. And that's exactly the route that we took in the hope. We decided that we will set up a training center. But once again, to set up a training center, there are certain legal requirements, there are financial requirements, there are commitments. And one of the requirements is that you must have a paid up capital of 200,000 Qatari riyals. Now, with today's exchange rate, you're talking about 20 rupees per Qatari riyal. So you're talking 20 times 200,000. That's a lot of money. And for an ordinary person like me, who's working in an ordinary company, I did not have that kind of money. So the need to start something is there, but the ability to start is not there. So this is a big gap. How am I going to overcome this gap? Similarly, we need staff. And when you say staff, you need qualified staff. And when you say qualified staff, it means money. And you have to pay them, right? Nobody works for free. Unlike in some places where, I'm sure there are volunteers working, but I'm not talking about volunteers working. I'm talking about qualified professional staff who can be approved by the relevant ministries so that they can actually provide these services. So this is one of the big challenges that hit us. And of course, we had no expertise. We had absolutely zero expertise in running any center for children with special needs or any training center or anything for that matter. So these are some of the real challenges that came and hit us. So as I said earlier, I'm not here to talk about the laws. I'm not talking about the legislations and the acts and the enactments and things like that. I'm just telling you that here's a set of laws that we need to follow. And they're not easy. And we don't have the ability to fulfill these requirements, but we have the need and the desire to start that center. So we had to actually come up with some kind of creative ways to do this. So we started thinking about it. And as I said earlier, whenever in life a problem comes to you, whenever in life a challenge comes to you, it will automatically come in a package with solutions as well. But what happens is very often we as individuals, we get stuck on the problem. We see the box from outside. That's the box of problems. But if you start unwrapping it bit by bit, paper by paper, take it apart, you will find that the answers to your problems are there within that box itself. And this is exactly what happened in the case of Hope as well. In conversation with like-minded people, and this is what I would recommend and suggest to each of the 215 participants that are signed in at the moment. Talk to people, communicate, collaborate, work together. Because when it comes to disabilities and when it comes to serving people with disabilities, we are not in competition with one another. Okay, and this happens even now in Doha, Qatar, where there are many centers at present, by the way, but because when we started it, there were none. We were one of the pioneers. In fact, we were the pioneers to start a center, a private, fully private center for children with special needs. But today there are many. And we go out and collaborate and communicate and network with all these centers. Because we believe, and I believe strongly, that when it comes to serving people with challenges, serving the individuals with disabilities and their families, we are not in competition with one another. We are in collaboration, right? We work together because at the end of the day, we have only one objective in mind, to bring out the best in that person with special needs, to bring out the best in that child who is under our care, to bring out the best irrespective of whether it's an educational intervention that you're doing or a speech intervention or occupational therapy or behavior therapy, physiotherapy, whatever it may be. Today's session needs to bring about a change in that child, which brings him or her better than what they were yesterday. And that's our objective. And to do that, we are not in competition with anybody. So we did this. We started talking to a lot of people, and we came up with beautiful, lovely, like-minded individuals who came up with great ideas, including people from the legal side, including people from the Indian Embassy, including volunteers. People came together, and we were able to start a volunteering program in a makeshift facility, which was given to us by a particular organization over there, where they would allow us to operate classes in their hall in the morning, and then we have to clear up everything in the afternoon and vacate because they will be using that facility for something else in the afternoon. So we were able to set up a small place like that and to start the activity. So if we had been stuck by these legal requirements and the financial requirements and the infrastructure requirements and tried to solve all these things, we would never be in a position to start something. We would never be in a position to move forward. We'll never be in a position to actually make that change, that a baby step. I would call it a baby step. We will never be in a position to take that baby step forward. But in discussion with people, so many ideas will come, so many options will come in, so many alternatives will come in. And some of those alternatives will help you achieve your objectives and targets without going outside the framework of the legal requirements or whatever. And I say to all of you, if at all you're trying to do something, always remain within the law. Never break the law. Because if you break the law, sooner or later, the law will catch up with you. So always stay within the law, within the framework of the system that are there, and then find the solution. So we started as a small voluntary center. And a few months later, we were actually covered by the local media. There was a lot of media discussions around what we were doing. And we were lucky that some corporate sponsors came forward, and they came forward and they sponsored a building for an entire year. And so we were able to actually move from our makeshift facility, a volunteering kind of facility, into a perfect building, which could be customized for the requirements of our children. And that's how, when you want to do something, the world, the nature, the world around you has a way of opening up doors for you. So keep moving forward. When you want to do something, keep moving forward. And this is how we started the first official center for Hope Qatar. And then it became bigger. The more children started coming in, more teachers started coming in. We started replacing the volunteers with professional teachers. Funds started coming in. Corporate support started coming in. We started charging a small fee so that the children can pay for it. And that way, from step by step, we grew. And today, after 16 years, we are one of the leading providers of special education in the state of Qatar. And we are approved by the Ministry of Education and so many other things that I'll talk to you in a little while. So what I want to say is, there is something called the power of focus. We need to be able to focus on what we want to focus on. We can either focus on the obstacles that are thrown at us, or we can focus on the opportunities and the possibilities that are there beyond the obstacles. And this is not applicable only to this particular case of Hope Qatar, which I'm talking about. This applies to any problem that you have in life. Whatever challenges you may be facing in life today, personal challenges, interpersonal challenges, legal challenges, financial challenges, educational challenges, health-related challenges, whatever it may be, beyond those challenges, there are solutions. So you need to focus not just on the problems and get stuck over there, but you can actually look at all the opportunities around you, because we are also blessed today. We may have challenges, we may have problems, but life has given us so many things that we can be thankful for. And that things that we can count ourselves blessed by having all those opportunities for us. So we need to focus on not just the problems, but on the solutions. There will always be challenges, but challenges come with opportunities, as I say. And if you start thinking only about the problems, you will stay stuck in the problem. But if you start focusing on the opportunities, you will move forward. And then once you start focusing on what needs to be done, it's not enough to just keep talking about it. You have to take action. And if you see the slide, you will see that it says the power of your action. Why do I say the word your? Because it's up to us to take the action. We don't wait for others to do it for us. We did not wait for the case of Hope Qatar for somebody else to start a center. I could not pay for something like that. I was not financially strong enough to start a center for children with special needs. But there was a deep desire. My wife had a deep desire. My family had a desire. And then we realized there were so many hundreds of parents around us who had similar challenges. So what did we do? Just start taking those steps. Take action. Don't just procrastinate. Never procrastinate and stay stuck. Okay, you need to get unstuck. There will be challenges, but jump towards your opportunities. And then you need to start visualizing that these changes happened and believe that things will go fine. Never have doubt in your mind. It's okay, normal to have doubt, but don't get stuck on your doubts. Remember that if you really work hard, if you are committed to something, you can make that difference in the life of whatever you're trying to do. It could be a new project you're initiating. It could be a new center you want to start up. It could be a child that you're dealing with, whatever it is. If you believe that you're putting in your full effort into that, only good will come out of it, right? And this is how we started taking action in the case of Hope as well. And what was the impact that we had? In a few years from then, we were able to graduate the first batch of students at Hope Qatar. And you'll find, in fact, that is my son Steven sitting right at the middle over there in the front. We completed a batch of students who completed their 10th grade exams through the open schooling system, 12th grade exams through the open schooling system. We were able to graduate the batches of students in diplomas in computer applications, other vocational training activities. And we actually conducted the first graduation ceremony. These children currently have sports days, they have annual days, they have science exhibitions, they go and do shopping activities. They do literally everything. I mean, we were able to open up a world of opportunities for the students that we have. Currently, we have 85 students over there. We started with 6, that was 16 years ago. And about a month ago, we shifted into a new facility which can accommodate up to 100 children. And that is what we are doing. This is the impact that Hope has actually had on Qatar and on the children who were given to us by God Almighty and the parents of the children who bestowed their trust and confidence in us. We got ISO certified recently, and we received Qatar Leadership Awards. We received a certification from the World Down Syndrome organization in the UK for our services to the differently abled persons in Qatar. So that was one of the recognitions that came in recently. We were awarded a special mention by the United Nations Special Rapporteur for Disabilities in Qatar. So, if you are committed to what you're doing, and we're not after any of these recognitions, I mean, that's secondary for us. What is important for us is the impact that we have on the children. So continue, and anybody can do it. If an ordinary person like me, who had absolutely, as I mentioned earlier, the challenges, I had no legal knowledge about things. We did not have any financial backing to do things like that. We did not have any experience in this area, but there was a deep desire and a willingness to do it and the ability. And we were able to have the support system of like-minded people who did not stop us. Because today what happens in most of our life, and in fact, even in the challenges that we face, is every time we want to do something, people around us will start creating that element of doubt in us. Oh, what if you fail? And oh, what if it didn't go right? And what if that? And what if this? So all these what ifs come into our life, and then we start getting stuck. And then we don't move forward. So you need to break away from this. You need to throw away these what ifs around you and throw it away out of your mind and be focused, be stable, and be confident, and be committed to what you're doing. Because if somebody like an ordinary person like me or my wife would do this, just because of our personal need with Steven, and it's impacted hundreds and hundreds of children. And our programs, actually, we have hundreds of thousands of people attending the very other programs that we have. If you go to our website, you'll find a lot of information. I don't want to take away your valuable time talking about all those things. What I wanted to showcase to you is a case study. That if somebody wants to do something, and if there are legal challenges and obstacles available, you can actually work around them as well. And never let these obstacles be a burden or a hindrance to creating rehabilitative opportunities for the children and the youth who are given to you. Now, even for the latest initiatives that I spoke about, we have various obstacles. We have various obstacles, exactly the same obstacles. Financial, I don't have the money to do this. And legally, there are so many legal requirements which I am unable to fulfill yet. And especially in a place like India, there is another issue that actually comes up: corruption. It's very unfortunate. And we don't want to say it doesn't happen, because it happens. At every level, you can find corrupt people. And they stand in the way. Even if you have a genuine project that you want to implement, even if you want to have great impact on what you want to do, and you have a clear action plan, you have everything that you need, somebody stands up and they expect something from you to make things happen. Even not just for new projects such as the ones that I'm talking about, even for existing projects. I interact with so many people I'm based out of Chennai now. In fact, I'm speaking to you from Chennai at present, where I am I'm based out of, and I keep traveling between Qatar and here. And in Chennai, even when I speak to people who have established various organizations for the disabled individuals, they always talk about challenges. I mean, if an inspector comes in and if you are not good to him, and you can say what good to him means, then he can automatically create obstacles for you. They could take away your certification. They could lock the place down. They could say you are maltreating or mistreating the inmates. So they could say you are misbehaving with the students. And what's there to protect you? So it's unfortunate situations that are there. There are hurdles, financial hurdles, legal hurdles, infrastructural hurdles, zero expertise. But what is keeping me going forward is that these two shall be overcome. If we could do it once, it will happen again. And today I am actually speaking to over 225 of you over here. And I'm sure many of you will have ideas. Many of you will have thoughts. Many of you will have something to contribute on. I'm not talking money. I'm talking ideas. I'm talking intellectual knowledge. I'm talking about contacts. I'm talking about ideas on how we can overcome some of these challenges and make these things happen. So at the end of this presentation, I'll be putting up my contact details there. If any of you are interested in these projects, a residential community for the intellectually challenged people, establishing gymnasiums around the country for people with disabilities, intellectual and physical, and we add to it the geriatric care also, elders. Today we have so many elders among us. After 70 years, 60 years, 70 years, they become physically weak. Their muscles are not used. And if you follow the principle of use it or lose it, if you don't use your muscles, you're going to lose it. And then you lose the capacity to bear weights. They're not physically mobile, so that they start getting pain in their shoulders and in their knees and in other parts of the body. So why don't we open up things like this for the elders as well? We create accessibility for everybody. It's nothing that stops us from doing it except our will and except our ability to think beyond the obstacles. And any of these projects, if any of you have ideas, feel free to come forward. I'll be very happy to talk to you on all of this. We also have a lot of vacancies and things like that. So opportunities for employment are there. We are talking about world class. If the United States, you just heard from that previous presenter, what the United States is doing for its intellectually challenged and disabled people. If they can do it over there, what is stopping us from doing it over here in India? We have a beautiful legislation for it. We have infrastructure, we have acts and enactments which you have attended over the last couple of days, and you will still be attending today and tomorrow, and you will be learning about all this legal things, all the financial things, all the benefits that are there, the social security systems that are over there. What is stopping us from making sure that these are world class? What is stopping us? We can't wait for the government to do everything for us. The public-private partnership is the need of the day. We can all contribute our efforts, our might, our knowledge, our interest, and make the world a better place for the intellectually challenged people. And this is the beautiful opportunity that all of you have given us. And your role over there, first of all, would be to create awareness to the parents on the legal issues that may face. And today and yesterday and tomorrow, you are going to understand in depth about the legal issues that can be encountered by the parents of children with special needs. Like one example, for a simple example, after the age of 18, the parent is not the legal guardian of the disabled child. Legally. The taluk officers and the government organizations who are there in that area are the legal guardians. So now it makes it essential for the parents to apply for legal guardianship to make sure that you can take certain decisions for your child, that you can manage their finances, that you can manage their properties. So you need to have a legal authorization from the government now, making you a legal guardian for your own child. How many parents know this? They encounter the challenges when they actually go and try to get something done. So you as therapists, you as special educators, are interacting with parents. You're interacting with children. You're interacting with the local communities and societies around you. Make these things aware to them. It is not enough for you to attend these 3 days of programs and walk away with your RCA credits. It is for you to use this information and give it back to the society. Put it back out over there, because when knowledge is shared, it multiplies. It's not enough to take all this knowledge with us, because at the end of the day, one day we will all leave this world. So what did we do with the knowledge that we gained? Okay, you got your credits that you wanted, but is that the ultimate objective of attending a seminar like this? Is that the objective why Sneha Sadan is conducting something like this, just to give you credits? No, it's to make you empowered to make the change. Make each one of you empowered to be that change in the society that is needed today. Okay, so please create awareness to parents on legal issues they may face. It could be regarding legal guardianships. Please talk to them about the requirements for will and trust, because after their time, somebody has to manage this money. How do you make sure that, I mean, today I see parents saving for their disabled children, okay? Some of them haven't even thought about it, but some of them have started saving. How do you make sure that this money actually reaches that child and somebody else doesn't take it away? How do you guarantee that your child is going to be the beneficiary of all the things that you have created for them? So a need for a will or a trust might be one of the solutions. There may be others. I'm just giving a few examples here. I'm not giving the solutions. I'm giving a solution. Okay, so there's a difference between that. So there, some people may need to start thinking about financial planning for the special needs families. Many people have not thought about it. Many parents are not even aware about what financial planning is. You can help them with that. You as a special educators, you as therapists, you as organizations over here who are running centers or about to start centers or making an impact, interacting with them, just casually ask them, dear parent, have you ever thought about financial planning for your child? Have you set aside enough funds to protect them if something happened to you? Have you taken insurance policies to cover this child in case something happens to you? Simple questions, simple dialogue can make a change. Okay, so, and don't consider yourself to be small. Everybody has a role. God has given us all an opportunity. God has given you the chance to touch the life of at least one student. Go ahead and do it. Never give up on that opportunity that has been given to you. You can stay positive among all challenges, and you can be a beacon of hope for these parents also. Many of them are frustrated. Many of them are desperate. If you actually speak to them, you will find a lot of them are going through various challenges as well. You can be that beacon of hope for them. And as I mentioned earlier, collaborate and cooperate. If you have networks of people who are attending this program today, even if you came together, 250 of you, you are a huge resource. You're a huge resource for this country. You're a huge resource for this each and every child that is given to us. And there is no competition in this field. We are all collaborators, and I am open to collaborations. Any knowledge I have, any information I have, I'm willing to share with you. Just reach out to me, ask for whatever is needed. And from our own experience as a parent, as a passionpreneur, okay, we became passionpreneurs following our passion and creating entrepreneurial opportunities out of our own personal need. And why shouldn't I share this information with you? And that is why when I was invited by this amazing organization, Sneha Sadan, to speak a few words to you, I said, this is an excellent opportunity to create an impact. Give some thoughts. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, that what we did was the best way to do it. It is one way to do things. Maybe this is one way that you can actually work out as well. Have determination and stay committed to the cause. You will face problems. You will face obstacles, but never give up. If you give up, you lose that opportunity. If you give up, that child who is going to benefit from you will never gain the benefit that they actually were supposed to get. So each one of us has a role to play, and each one of us is given an opportunity to collaborate and to make a difference. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. I'd like to thank the organizers once again, and I'd like to thank the audience also for being patient with me and sitting through this discussion of what we had been going through. Please feel free to take a screenshot of this screen that you're seeing on your handheld devices or on your laptops, wherever you may be watching it, because there's a lot of contact information available over there. Feel free to reach out. I'm looking for people to collaborate with as well. I'm willing to share my ideas, work with organizations, work with individuals, anybody, because together we can make a difference. And that is the purpose of our life, to make that difference. The floor is open to you for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Delegates, you may ask your questions. The session is open for questions. You may also type your questions in the chat box if there are any. Sir, as you were talking about your journey to hope, you were talking about your whole journey and the hurdles you had to face and in establishing hope. So I would like to ask, what do you think starting such a center in India, do you think it requires more work, have more hurdles by law, and is more time consuming? Of course, you mentioned corruption. Apart from that.
Well, I personally, I've tried to read a lot about what is available and what is not available. And I believe that the legislations that we have are excellent. And the desire and the will of creating these things is great and excellent. I believe that the system is so overwhelmed by simply by the large number of people who need these services. Okay, even if you were talking about the disability allowances, which are a legal entitlement for every disabled child, how many people actually know about it? How many parents actually, among the 250 attendees over here, how many parents of the children that you handle on a day-to-day basis are aware of this? And how many of them have actually followed through? And when I personally made sure that I wanted to have my son registered as a disabled individual in the framework within whatever system they have in India, I had to get him a disability card. And it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. You have to go through so many challenges to simply get a piece of paper that tells you that this child is having this kind of disabilities, this is his percentage, and etc., etc., etc. And then to get the national card, it takes you more than a year or two. Why? Why? We have an electronic system. We talk about technological changes. We talk about creating the change in India and build in India and so many campaigns that we are doing electronically. What is the difficulty in issuing that card in a single day? So obviously things can be improved. Okay, and same way, simply if you look at the amount of pension or the disability allowance that each of these children are entitled to, how long does it actually take for somebody to complete the application process to get that allowance? And how many offices do you have to go and knock personally to get that allowance? Why? It's a right, is there right? So if it's a right, why do you have to go begging for it? It should come to you automatically. The moment you get a disability card, we should have a system that links to whoever is handling this payment system. Your database is updated. Here is your bank details. And next month, it should automatically credit in your account. Why do I have to run around between taluk offices and that office and this office and get 100 signatures? And then to get the signatures, not everywhere is easy. Sometimes you have to give something to get something. And that's not right. So that is, I think, the implementation of these policies and the legislations is where the challenge is. And as I mentioned earlier, India has so many hundreds of thousands of disabled people of various levels. You're talking physical disabilities, intellectual disabilities, multiple disabilities. So it is simply overwhelming the system. So if the government is allocating X crores of rupees for disability allowance, what actually filters down to each individual is peanuts. And is that sufficient to maintain a person in today's world with today's economic expenses and cost of living and things like that, to even have maybe a piece of bread every day? So these are the type of questions we have to ask. So why isn't it possible for us to create a larger fund, maybe, through public-private partnership? Let the corporates start pumping some money into it. They say, look, set aside 5% of your profits to support projects such as this. It can be done. Maybe I think it's the will that needs to be created first. And the laws are amazing. The structure is there. The systems are there. And I have personally visited and seen some of the facilities that are there for treatment and the free treatment, the educational facilities. They are all good. They are beautiful and they are well managed. It's just that not everybody is getting it because of various reasons. I see that 4 participants have raised their hands, so maybe you can coordinate some of the questions. I would even recommend you type your questions in the chat box, because that makes it a lot easier for us to read and answer you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Participants, you may unmute to speak. We see few of the participants have raised their hands. You may please unmute and speak.
Don't be shy. By the way, there is nothing like called a foolish question. A question that comes into your mind means that something was not clear, either in what I said, or you have a difference of opinion, or you have a different thought. Share it. 250 people will gain from it. So feel free to ask. Feel free to share.
You may also type your questions in the chat box.
Maybe they just raise their hand to say, hey, I'm hungry.
So thank you, sir. So a webinar where we discussed about social security and legal aspects in disability rehab wouldn't have been complete without such a session where you clearly narrated the journey in establishing an institute, which indeed gives hope to many. Thank you so much, sir. You are an inspiring personality, and we are very happy to have heard you. Sending lots of love to Stevens and your family. Thanks for inspiring us with your story and what you do for the individuals with special needs and their families. Thank you so much, sir. Hope to see you again. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a nice day. And please feel free to connect. I look forward to hearing from you.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Before you disconnect, sir, sorry, all the delegates, please switch on your video camera so that we shall pose for a photograph. Sir, it will take not more than 1 minute, sir. Delegates, please switch on your video cameras. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Dear delegates, please make sure that your microphones are muted. Dear delegates, please make sure that your microphones are muted during the session. Dear delegates, now we are adjourning for the break. All delegates are requested to join back at 1:10 p.m. IST for the next session on UNCRPD by Dr. Cyril Sklarvin. Delegates, please make sure that you have sent back the filled Google evaluation forms before the next session. Please make sure that you join back by 1:05 IST, 1:05 p.m. IST. Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome back, dear delegates. Before we begin, may I remind you that you shall send back the filled Google evaluation forms soon. May I also remind the participants to make sure that your microphones are muted throughout the session to avoid any kind of disturbance. May I repeat? Please mute your microphones throughout the session. You can keep your questions to the end of the session. In this session of the second day of the 3 days international webinar series on social security and legal aspects in disability rehabilitation, we have Mr. Cyril Sclarabin to lead the session on UNCRPD. Mr. Cyril has a master's in psychology, MPhil in rehabilitation psychology, B.Ed and M.Ed in special education with specialization in intellectual disability, and is the in charge of special education at Reliance Foundation School, Jamnagar, Gujarat. He has more than 10 years of experience in the field of psychology, special and inclusive education, and rehabilitation, disability rehabilitation. He has served as the lecturer of special education in many B.Ed and diploma courses, and also as the teacher of psychology and special education in different schools. He has also worked under the Department of Education, Government of Haryana. Mr. Cyril's preferred area is working with children with autism and special learning disabilities in inclusive setups. And we are also proud to say that he's an alumni of Sneha Sadan College of Special Education, Angamaly. We are pleased to have you here, sir. Good afternoon. Welcome to the session, sir. Sir, are you there? Sir, are you there? Sir, you're not audible, sir. Please unmute your mic. No, sir, you're not yet audible. Dear delegates, make sure that you have sent back your filled evaluation Google forms before we start the next session. Please make sure that you have sent the filled Google evaluation forms. And please make sure that your microphones are muted throughout the session. We encourage all the delegates to ask questions at the end of each session. You may also type in your questions in the chat box. Our speaker will connect with us in a minute. Thanks for your patience. No, sir, you're not yet audible. Can you please unmute your mic?
Now, am I audible? Hello? Ipo no sound. Hello? Am I audible?
Sir, you're audible now. Can you please increase the volume? We can hear you now, sir, but can you please increase the volume?
അതെവിടെയാണ് automatic adjustment? Okay, 1 second, please. എനിക്ക് ഇവിടെ കിട്ടുന്ന ഓപ്ഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് സെയിം ആസ് സിസ്റ്റം, പിന്നെ മൈക്രോഫോൺ അറേ, സ്റ്റീരിയോ മിക്സ്, സെലക്ട് സ്പീക്കർ, ലീവ് കമ്പ്യൂട്ടർ ഓഡിയോ. Okay, it's fine, no? Okay. So sorry, participants, it was a technical glitch and we know it is not in our hand. So sorry for the delay as well. And thank you.
Network issues are always expected and we totally understand you, sir. It's okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for joining
thank you
us.
so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Now I want to do that justice to that the great introduction. Okay. Anyways, once again, I would like to extend my hearty thankful to Sneha Sadan College of Special Education, especially the authorities, Sister Jisa Grace and Bobby ma'am, for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to take a topic under international webinar or CRE program. Okay, and this topic is very much emotionally close to me because I will tell you the details in the slide presentation because this UNCRPD, as you know, this came into force 2008, and that year when I was a student for B.Ed in Sneha Sadan College. So we were very excited when we have this notification in the government website. The new legal instrument is going to become in India, and we are going to implement some or the other aspect of this UNCRPD. So this topic is very much special for me. And being a special educator, being a parent, or whoever is there to work with the student with special needs, it is a very important to know the core aspect of this UNCRPD. So without any further delay, let's start. So let me share the screen.
Sir, you have gone on mute again. Can you please unmute your mic? Pull it up again. Yes, sir. You're audible now, sir.
Is the screen visible? The PPT is visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
Thank you for the confirming. Okay, so dear participant, we can begin. So the topic is United Nations Convention on the Right of the Person with Disabilities. We call it as UNCRPD. Okay, so UNCRPD is a international level legal instrument. The 2 days webinar is going on regarding the legal right and other aspect of children with special needs or person with disabilities. So if you're talking about the UNCRPD, it is a convention basically, and most of the countries under the signatory of UN, they ratified or some or the other aspect of this convention protocol. So if you Google, you can have a complete 37-page document regarding this United Nations Convention or UNCRPD. And this document includes 3 parts basically. So how I am going to deal with this topic with you. So 2 parts will be there. The first part, the technical aspect and the legal part of this UNCRPD. And the second part, that is a very important, what are the provision, what are the various rights mentioned under UNCRPD, and in Indian scenario, what are the measures so far we have taken based on the UNCRPD. So in 3 level, I will be discussing this topic. So the first level, I told you the technical aspect or the legal aspect of this convention. So basically this document include 3 parts. One is the preamble, and second one is different articles related to various rights. So there are 1 to 15, like 50 different articles are there which mention various rights. And the last part is the optional protocol, and that is again include 18 different articles. So preamble and 50 articles related to various rights and 18 articles related to the optional protocol. Now, let me tell you what is a preamble. So you all are familiar with our Constitution of India. So we can say the first page, that is preamble. So in the same way, the UNCRPD document, if you see, there is a preamble. And what is a preamble? It is a preparatory statement, or simply we can say it is an introduction. Introduction about this UNCRPD. Okay, an introductory part or a state or deed stating its purpose, aims, or objective. So what is a preamble? It's an introduction of a particular statute or a legal instrument or a deed, and which mention the purpose of that statute, the aims and objective of the statute. So if you read the preamble part, so we can understand what are the objectives, what are the aims on which we discuss this UNCRPD. So that's the first part of this UNCRPD when we talk about the document. And the second part, I told you the different article, okay. And the third part, optional protocol. Now, what is optional protocol? Optional protocol is nothing but it is a legal instrument related to an existing treaty or addresses issue which are not covered in the parent document. When we talk about the legal aspect or the law, we generally say amendment. Amendment means some changes, some modifications. So optional protocol is a secondary document which added later on. There is a parent document, and when we try to implement the parent document or the suggestions, so we may feel, okay, there are some lacuna, there are some delay, there are something which is lacking in that protocol. So we introduce another related document to cover that lacuna or the cover that delay which are there in the parent document. So there is a parent document and there is a optional protocol. So this optional protocol come later. Okay, after trying to implement the original document, the optional protocol will come. Okay, so preamble, the different article related to rights and the optional protocol. Okay, that is a very basic information about this. Now, let's discuss what is all about this UNCRPD. So you can see in the slide, the Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities is an international human rights treaty of the United Nations intended to protect the right and dignity of the person with disabilities. Okay, so it is an international treaty. In the treaty means some kind of agreement, some kind of statute, yeah, with a mutual understanding of various countries all over the world or under the United Nations. They prepared a document or a protocol which has to be implement all the member countries. Okay. And parties to the convention are required to promote, protect, and ensure the full enjoyment of human rights by persons with disabilities and ensure that persons with disabilities enjoy full equality under the law. So whoever in the treaty, under that UN treaty, we call it as parties. Okay, they have to promote. It is an obligation. It's a mandatory. They have to promote or protect and ensure the full enjoyment of human rights. So that is a basic idea of UNCRPD. Full enjoyment of human right. And third one, the convention serves as a major instrument in the global disability rights movement, enabling a shift from viewing persons with disabilities as objects of charity, medical treatment, and social protection towards viewing the full enjoyment of human right. When you discuss the background of special education history, there are different models we discuss. If you are a diploma student, if you are a B.Ed student, or you are a teacher, you can relate this concept. There are different model of special education or inclusive education: the charity model, the medical model, the social protection model. But the UNCRPD is claiming that above of all this model, we need to respect and we need to protect the right of all the human, and yes, especially the person with disabilities. So these are the three core aspects of this UNCRPD. It is an international treaty and it tried to promote and protect the human rights. Now, this slide, you can see the basic background information about this convention. So, adopted by the General Assembly, that is United Nations, in 13th December 2016. So, in 2016, the United Nations, they adopt this protocol or the instrument. Then, record number of signatories on opening of day 81. So, here you need to understand two terminologies: signatories and parties. What is signatory? Once this document is in a public mode, so whoever is supporting, whoever it want to implement this protocol, they can be a signatory. What is a signatory? Signatory is nothing but it's a state, it's a country, and that country is willing to continue its engagement with this treaty. For example, India as a signatory. So India is ready to cooperate with this treaty, and India is ready to implement the protocols, the suggestions. When a country or a state is ready to implement, that country will be a signatory. Okay, here what I mentioned, the word state, it is not Kerala state, Tamil Nadu state, because internationally we don't use country word. We use state. Okay, state means country. So if any country who want to engage themselves in this treaty, that country will be a signatory. And so India has signed for this convention on the first day of its opening and ratified it on 1st October 2007. So General Assembly adopted in 2006 and 2007 India ratified. Ratified means India took some measures or tried to generate some laws to implement this convention protocol. That is what is about ratification. And finally came into force in 3rd May 2008. Okay, so this is the timeline of this convention: 2006, 2007, and 2008. So came into force means under UN protocol, a minimum number of countries, when they are ready to implement this protocol, then only we would say this act came into force. Okay, there is a minimum number. If I'm not wrong, it's a 20. At least 20 countries, they are ready to ratify that legal instrument. Then we say it came into force. So it came into force on 3rd May 2008. Okay, so India is the one country which ready to ratify on the first day of that protocol. Okay. And I told you the document include preamble, article, and optional protocol. And the signatory, who is the signatory? Signatory, the state, the state which is ready to implement and wanted to engage with United Nations. And once we become a signatory and the country start making the laws for implementing the protocol, then it will become a like what we call party. Okay. So signatory and party, these are the two important aspects. Why I am focusing these two terminologies, because in the coming slide, whenever we discuss each rights, so I will mention the party. Party means the countries who already taken some measures to implement the UNCRPD protocol. Okay. And one more thing, maybe yesterday you had that workshop regarding RPWD Act. So RPWD Act is the measure taken by the government of India by implementing the UNCRPD. Now you can connect. Okay. Once we become a signatory and we made some or the other laws in our nation. Okay, because we cannot implement the UNCRPD as such in our country, because that's a international instrument. So based on our scenario, based on our Indian condition, based on the our country's environment, we need to make some or the other rules to implement the UNCRPD. So RPWD Act is a result of UNCRPD implementation. When you compare these two laws, you can see most of the right mentioned in the RPWD Act is the same as in the UNCRPD. Okay, that is the relation between UNCRPD and the RPWD Act. Okay, and current as of 2021 December, there are 163 countries under signatories and 184 countries as a party. Under 184, 183 different status, and the one is European Union. So 183 countries and one European Union, together 184 parties are there under United Nations. They are taken some or the other measures to implement the UNCRPD protocol. So this is the very basic background information regarding UNCRPD in terms of their like legal aspect and technical aspect. Okay. Now, from here, we are going to discuss various articles and the related content under that article. I told you in the parent document, there are 50 articles. Okay, and each different article deal with different aspect. I'm not going to explain all these 50 articles because it takes a lot of time. I put some major articles which are directly like related to the parents or as a teacher or as an educator. Okay, so in terms of the special education, in terms of the inclusive education, in terms of the parent rights. So based on that, I have taken some articles and we will discussing that articles only. Okay, rest of the things, if you interested, you can have this document from the Google, or I can share with you the college. So from there you can access this document and you can read the entire document for the better understanding. Okay, so the first article is basically deal with the purpose. What is the purpose of this UNCRPD? As I mentioned in the very first slide, the purpose of the present convention is to promote, protect, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms by all the persons with disabilities, and to promote respect of their inherent dignity. Being a human being, as a human being, every person has some or the other inherent dignity. So we have to respect, we have to protect their life irrespective of any kind of special need or disabled condition. So that is the very important purpose of this UNCRPD convention. And the second article is dealing with some definitions. Okay, there are some key terminologies mentioned in the document. So communication, language, discrimination on the basis of disability, reasonable accommodation, and universal design. So what does it mean? What is the meaning of this key terminology? That is the second article. Okay, so communication means all kind of communication. The language means the both verbal language, and the sign language. Okay, and discrimination on the basis of disability. Okay, in any ways there will be no kind of discrimination. And reasonable accommodation, when we discuss about the inclusive classroom, if you want to accommodate a child with special needs, we need to provide reasonable accommodations. We need to adapt the classrooms. We need to adapt the classroom environment, the physical structure of the classroom, the TLMs, the curriculums, the playground, the library. Every aspect of the classroom, every aspect of the school need to be adapted, or some or the other accommodation we need to provide. And universal design, yes, is a very hot topic nowadays. Most of the countries, most of the schools are trying to inculcate the principles of universal design that generally we call UDL. Okay, so these are the 5 key terminologies which mentioned in the second article as a definition. When come to the third article which deals with general principles. Okay, what is the basic principles? From there we create the entire document or generate the entire protocol under UNCRPD. So there are 8 general principles mentioned in the UNCRPD. We will see one by one. The first one is respect for inherent dignity, individual autonomy, including the freedom to make one's own choice and independence of the person. So as you know, when we ask about, okay, what is the objective of special education, or what is the objective of inclusive education? So the best answer is make the child independent. Make the child independent living. Prepare the person, or prepare the child for independent living. So that is the first guiding principle. We need to respect the inherent dignity, and we need to provide the option for their choice. It is not because some or the other pressure we need to apply for a person to make the choice. No, we need to provide the freedom to make their own choice. And non-discrimination, as I mentioned earlier, non-discriminatory approach is the second principle. And third, full and effective participation and inclusion in the society. Okay, so school is a part of the society. There are different area come under society. So in a large view, we need to provide the opportunities to the person with disability to effective participants, the 360 degree of our society. Okay, so but when we talk about the inclusive education, we generally consider the school atmosphere, but the UNCRPD is talking about the effective inclusion in the society. Respect for differences and acceptance of person with disabilities as a part of human diversity and humanity. Okay, so whenever we talk about some or the other principles in inclusive education, we always mention the key word: all persons are unique, all the child unique. Okay, uniqueness is very important. So but some or the other time we may not be understand what is this uniqueness. Okay, we have also some apprehension towards the uniqueness. Okay, so if you are taking humanity as a spectrum, okay, there is no full male, full female. We are all come under a spectrum. You know, when we discuss the autism spectrum disorder, spectrum means nothing. It's a continuum. Okay, under the spectrum there are different aspects. So human being is also a spectrum. There are different persons are there. Okay, so diversity is the one of the wonderful aspect of human being or the human society. So we need to accept that diversity. We have children with different special need. We have the people, they don't have the written language. They have only spoken language. But they are also the part of our society. And we have neural diverse people. The autistic condition is a neural diversity. Learning disability is a neural diversity. Attention deficit hyperactive is a neural diversity. So many neural diversities are there. So we need to accept all this diversity, whether it is neural, whether it is physical, whether it is sensory. What kind of diversity is there? We need to accept that diversity. That's another principle. And equality opportunities. Yes, we need to provide equal opportunities for all the people. Yes, especially the children with special needs or the person with disabilities. And accessibility is the very important. When you visit any of the government website, even in the state website, also in the national institutes, the international institutes, you can see the accessible features. The screen reader is there, and big font is there, and the regional language option is there. Okay, even the Amazon website is also now having you can see the items in the Malayalam or Tamil or Hindi, whatever the regional language, you can see the material in that particular language. That is an example of accessibility. Okay, so I taken one example regarding this website. So all the aspect in our society, it should be accessible to the person with disabilities. Yes, equality between men and women. Yes, that is again is a guiding principle. Respect for evolving capacities of children with disabilities, and respect for the right of children with disability to preserve their identities. To preserve their identity as a child, we need to protect their identity in the society. So these are the 8 guiding principles which is mentioned the Article 3. Okay, when you listen this webinar, you may feel, these are very complex thing, and I am not able to understand. But when you relate this aspect into your day-to-day life, then you can easily understand. If you are a teacher, then what are the point I am discussing? Try to relate this point in your classroom. And if you are a parent, try to relate these topics when you interact with your child. Okay, and if you are a person who is working in the favor of or working for the person with disabilities, then in your day-to-day activities, how these principles are important. Okay, so when you relate, when you try to relate, then you could able to like understand these topics much better way. So the next, the Article 4, that is general obligation. What is the obligation? It's a mandatory clause. I told you, when you become a party, okay, you have to follow some protocol. Now this protocol is very interesting word. Almost all the people in anywhere in the world is understanding the word protocol because of this pandemic. So SMS is a very important protocol when we talk about pandemic, that social distancing, masking, and sanitization. We shortly we say SMS. So we need to follow that COVID protocol. The same way, if you are a signatory, if you are a party under the UNCRPD, that state has to follow some protocol or some obligations. So there are so many obligations mentioned in the document, but I took very few which are very important. So the first protocol, the state parties shall ensure to adopt all appropriate legislative, administrative, and other measures for the implementation of the rights recognized in the present conventions. Okay, so what are the rights mentioned in the UNCRPD? The state parties shall take appropriate legislative administration. Being a member of the UNCRPD or a party, all the countries have to make some or the other laws. So once we became a party in 2007 or 8 in India, then we took 8 years to come up with a legislation, that is RPWD Act. So we taken some measures. Okay, and to take all appropriate measures, including legislation to modify or abolish existing laws, regulations, customs, and practice. This is very important. Okay, if we come up with a new legislation, then we need to abolish, we need to remove the old practices if that are contradictory to the new one. Okay, you can compare the RPWD Act and the PWD Act, PWD Act 1995 and RPWD Act 2016. There 7 to 8 disabilities were mentioned in PWD Act. Now in RPWD Act we have 21 disabilities. Okay, so we are trying to approach a much bigger population while putting this 21 category in the new act. Now this time we are not at all following the PWD Act. That is not there. Okay, because we come up with more effective one. So once we come up with the more effective one, we need to abolish. We need to remove the old practices, the old legislation. Okay, this is an obligation. We cannot continue the older practices. And to take into account of the protection and promotion of the human right of a person with disabilities in all policies and programs, whatever the policies, whatever the programs we are implementing in our country related to any field. I'm not talking about the education. I'm not only talking about the disability rehabilitation. If you are talking about the agriculture field, if you are talking about the engineering field, if you are talking about the medical field, okay, whatever policies we are implementing in the country, taking an example in India, we need to consider this UNCRPD protocol. For example, the building code. I think you aware about the building code. Building code is something like when you build a building, new building. Okay, we need to follow some protocol. So now the accessible campaign is there, accessibility campaign by Government of India. All the public places, all the public building, all the community areas should be accessible to the children with special needs or the person with special needs. The adapted materials, the disabled friendly toilets, okay, and the ramps, wheelchair pathways. So these are the facilities we are providing for the under the accessible campaign. So this is a one policy implemented by Government of India. So whatever the policy in any sector, whatever the policy the government is implementing, we need to consider the protocol of UNCRPD. Okay, and to refrain from engaging in any act or practice that is inconsistent with the present convention. Once we are ready to implement the protocol, we should not follow any inconsistent practice that is against UNCRPD. We need to align. We need to prepare all our protocol. We need to prepare all our schemes and policies in accordance with that UNCRPD. So these are some obligations, some mandatory clause mentioned under Article 4 in the UNCRPD. So all the countries which are there as a parties, they need to follow these obligations. There are so many obligations are there, but I taken very few which are directly we can relate. The next article is Article 5, Equality and Non-Discrimination. Okay, so under this article, all persons are equal before and under the law and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law. Shall prohibit all discrimination on the basis of disability and guarantee to persons with disabilities equal and effective legal protection against discrimination on all grounds. So it is there in our constitution as well. Okay, before the law, everyone is equal. Okay, so this is the same. So government have to take some measures to provide the equality before the law. Everyone is equal before a law. If the person with disability, if the child with disability is there and he or she needs some or the other legal protection, so government has to take that take in consideration and provide the legal assistance. Okay, and for getting that legal assistance, maybe they need some or the other financial aid. So government can appoint a wakil or advocate free of cost. I am saying some or the other examples. Okay, so this is the way the government can ensure the equality before the law. Okay, the government or some NGOs, they provide the free of cost legal aid. Legal aid, you know, support. Here legal aid means legal support. Okay, to fight against some or the other discrimination by the person with disabilities. And the next article is Article 6, Women with Disabilities. Women and girls with disabilities are subject to multiple discrimination, and in this regard shall take measure to ensure the full and equal enjoyment by them of all human rights and fundamental freedom. Shall take all appropriate measures to ensure the full development, advancement, and empowerment of women. Okay, so women with disabilities, generally we consider they are subjected to multiple discrimination. What is multiple discrimination? Because like the developing country like India, the status of women as compared with the men is the quality of life comparatively very lesser, especially in the rural areas. Okay, so they are already in a like we can say in a back foot in the society, and the girl or the woman is having a disability, they have a double burden. That is double discrimination. The discrimination is because of the gender, and the discrimination because of the disability. And gender plus disability is the double discrimination. So when we consider the girl with disability, women with disability, we have to cross check. We have to be double like ensure to provide the right of that person, because already they are having some or the other discrimination facing from the society. So that is why we discuss like they are subject to multiple discrimination. Okay, based on the gender and based on the disability. The next article, Article 7, that is children with disability. Very important for educators, for teachers. State parties shall take all necessary measures to ensure the full enjoyment by children with disabilities of all human rights and fundamental freedoms on an equal basis with other children. In all actions concerning children with disabilities, the best interest of the child shall be primary consideration. Children with disabilities have the right to express their views freely on all the matters affecting them. Okay, it is very important whenever we take some or the other decision regarding a child with special needs, we must hear the voice of that child. We must consider the suggestions or the opinion of the child. We must take the consent of that child, because this decision is basically related to that person. Maybe that child is very younger, maybe below 18 years or 15 years, but irrespective of that age, we must consider his or her opinion, his or her suggestion, and we must take the consent. That is very important. Maybe we are parent, we may feel we know the things which is better than our child, but we need to take the consent. It's a very good example. Being a teacher, we all are making IEPs and we implementing the IEP. So while preparing the IEP, it is very important clause. Okay, we need to ask the child, or we need to discuss the child. Okay, it's a very small kid, it is very it is not possible. The pre-primary child or class 1, class 2 child, maybe it is not possible, but the higher class children, we need to discuss the child. What are the goal I am planning in the IEP? And we need to ask, okay, whether this goal is okay for you, you like it or not, you want to work with me on this goal. So this kind of consideration we need to keep in mind while preparing the IEP. So this is an example. Okay, taking consideration of that particular child when making that IEP is an example for respecting the dignity of that child. See the second part. In all action concerning the children with disabilities, the best interest of the child shall be primary consideration. If you are planning a placement in your classroom, a different placement, so we need to ask the child, okay, I am planning to keep you in this part of your class. This is okay for you, this is convenient for you, this is good for you. This kind of consideration we need to do before dealing with the children with special needs. Okay, there are so many related aspects are there, but because of the time limit, we are not taking all points to discuss. The next article is awareness raising. Awareness raising. Okay, maybe some of you people are working under IEDSS or SSA in Kerala state or any other state. So in IEDSS or SSA, now the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan is there. So there is a provision for, there is a budget allocation is also there to awareness generation, the sensitizing program, the awareness campaign. Sensitizing program for the peer group, sensitizing program for the parent, sensitizing program for the community leaders, sensitizing program for the general education teachers, sensitizing programs for the school administrators. Okay, and so why we are doing this? Because the education of the children with special needs or empowering the person with special needs is not possible without the collaboration of community. Okay, the parents, the school leaders, the peer group, these are all the helping hands for empowering the person with disabilities. But these people are not aware about the rights of the children with special needs. So it is our duty, it is the government duty, or being a parent, being a teacher, it is our duty to sensitize the parent, to sensitize the peer group, so sensitize the school community. So we need to generate lots of resources. We need to campaign. We need to conduct several campaign for awareness raising. Okay, so whatever the points we are discussing under UNCRPD, it is not like these are all can done by only the government. No, the government is the one so-called party can play a role. The non-government organization can also play a role, and teacher can also play a role, and the parent can also play a role. The student himself or herself can play a role, and the peer group can play a role. Okay, so we are also responsible for creating awareness in the society. And accessibility, I already discussed the accessible campaign, Government of India. So what is accessibility? Buildings, roads, transportation, and other indoor and outdoor facilities, including schools, housing, medical facilities, and workplaces. Okay, all the areas, all the aspects of our society in terms of physical infrastructure, the accessibility code should be followed. Information, communication, and other services include electronic services and emergency services. Okay, so mainly when we talk about the accessibility, we have a tendency to relate with the barrier-free environment, barrier-free environment. And when we talk about the barrier-free, the first point coming to our mind is physical barriers. The ramps, the wheelchair paths, the disabled-friendly toilet. These are the some concept that can jump into our mind. But when we talk about the accessibility, it is not only related to the physical accessibility. See, it is related to the information accessibility, related to the communication accessibility, related to the service accessibility. It is related to the accessibility of electronic services. Okay, if you see the internet, the mailing technique, the Gmail or Facebook, whatever the communication devices or the methodology we using, if you see carefully, there are some or the other accessibility features are there. In your mobile phone, accessibility features are there. Even the Zoom app, the Microsoft Team app, the so-called video conferencing apps which we are using, especially from the pandemic period, all these modern devices, all these modern internet devices having this accessibility. Okay, the immersive reader, maybe you might have heard about the immersive reader, the screen reader, the software which help us to read the text materials. Okay, in your Windows 10, the computer which you are using, if you have a Windows 10 or Windows 11 software, so there are so many accessible features in the Windows 10 laptop or desktop. After this program, you just check your Word document in the Microsoft, the Word document or the Excel document or the PowerPoint document, you can easily find out some of the other accessibility features in that document. Okay. Why these features? Because that make the accessible, that content to the person with disabilities, the child with disabilities, in terms of information, communication, and other electronic transaction. Okay, So it is not only related to the buildings, it's related to the all aspect of the human life. The Article 10, right to life, it is very important. Parties reaffirm that every human being has the inherent right to life and shall take all necessary measures to ensure its effective enjoyment by persons with disabilities on an equal basis with others. So right to life means, yeah, we need to provide such an environment so every person can develop their life. Every person can earn some or the other things which is helpful for leading a good life. So you can see different policies, different schemes by state government or the government of India in the name of some financial aid. This National Trust Act, if you see the Niramaya programs, the different scholarship, different policies in the school education, in the higher education also. So these are all the facilities which are trying to provide these people for leading a good life. If they are not able to achieve higher education, so there are scholarships, there are some reservation policies, there are some financial aid by the state government or some other non-government organization. These are all leading towards what we call right to life. The next is equal recognition before the law, that we already discussed in another article. The Article 20 is personal mobility. So its state parties shall take effective measures to ensure personal mobility with the greatest possible independence for persons with disabilities. It is again related to the barrier-free environment. Okay, mobility, free moving in the society. Okay, so building has to be barrier-free environment. Building in the sense the public places, the mall, the theaters, the school buildings, the government offices or parks or the other recreational areas, wherever the person need to go or enjoying his or her life, that all area, that's 360 degree of that society, we need to provide or we need to create the barrier-free system for independent moving, personal mobility. Okay, but unfortunately, like in our country or developing country like us, we are very like I would say not able to make a lot of measures in this area, personal mobility. Only we have some ramps, only we have some disabled friendly toilet, not more than that. But if you see the developed countries, because of their awareness, because of their financial capacity, they have many facilities for persons with disabilities. If you see the school buses, the wheelchair can go inside the school buses. Okay, that kind of facilities. Okay, the child is doing the wheelchair, but how that child can use that wheelchair from his house to that particular school? Maybe 1 kilometer away, 2 kilometer away. It is not possible. By using that wheelchair and cross the 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers. School buses are there, but buses are not disabled friendly or wheelchair friendly. So personal mobility means related to the movement in the society, movement in a particular building, movement in the house and outside the house and other public places. Okay, but yes, gradually we can also achieve some or the other goals under personal mobility. Government has already taken some measures to achieve this goal. Article 22 is respect for privacy. This is very important. No person with disabilities, regardless of place of residence or living arrangements, shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his or her privacy, family, home or correspondence or other type of communication, or unlawful attacks on his or her honor and reputation. So this privacy is very, very, very important. We may feel, okay, this is my child, this is my daughter, my son. So I am not like bothered about the privacy. No, it is a big issue. Whether it is whether the child is your daughter or son, the privacy is a equal important for that boy or girl. Okay, so parents, the teachers, the peer groups, and in total the society as a whole, we need to respect the privacy of a person with disabilities. And we need to ensure this privacy in the house, in the school, or wherever possible. Now, the Article 23 is respect for home and the family. Okay, take effective and appropriate measures to eliminate the discrimination against person with disability in all matters relating to marriage, family, parenthood, and relationship on an equal basis with others. Okay, this is something very complex. When I read this document when I was in B.Ed, so I was also a little confused about this article. And I could ask this question while I am attending one of the national conference organized by MHRD in New Delhi. So, but in that case also, I did not get any proper answer from the dignitary guest. So my question was, if a child is a severe cognitive delay or intellectual disability or multiple disability, so shall we recommend the marriage, or shall we recommend yes, marriage for that person? That was my question. But unfortunately, I did not receive that answer, and still I'm not sure about that answer. Okay, so having said, but in other cases, yes, we know in certain cases it is not advisable to marriage, and even this like siblings, because they are not in a position to carry out their life, which are expected according to the social norms. But very few minority cases are there. But other than that, we need to respect their right getting marriage and having the children. So take effective and appropriate measures to eliminate the discrimination against the person with disabilities in all matters related to marriage, family, parenthood. So in physical disabilities, it is very easy. And in sensory disabilities is again very easy. And yes, the child with learning disability, it is not an issue. But yes, the severe disability, the profound condition, the intellectual disability, it is still a question mark in front of us, how we can manage this aspect. Okay, but above all, irrespective of their disability and all, we need to respect their right to have a family or to have a marriage relationship. That is what is basically mentioned in the UNCRPD. And Article 24, education, is very important for being a special educator or a psychologist or a counselor. So it states, parties shall ensure an inclusive education system at all levels, primary level, secondary level, in higher secondary level, and the higher education level. In all level, we need to have an inclusive education system. Ensure that persons with disabilities are able to access education, vocational training, adult education, and lifelong learning without discrimination and on an equal basis with others. Ensure that reasonable accommodation is provided to persons with disability. So these are the three key aspects mentioned under this article 24, that is education. So inclusive education, I hope you are all aware about what is inclusive education. If you are working under a CBSE school, or you might have heard about, there is a handbook by CBSE about inclusive education. I consider this as a kind of Bible for inclusive education, because it has all the aspect of inclusive education: role of a parent, role of a teacher, role of a peer, role of school administrators, role of community members, role of special educators, role of counselors, role of different therapists. Okay, so that book covered almost all the aspect of inclusive education. So I recommend you people to go through that book. Even I have that soft copy, so I can share with Sneha Sadan College. Maybe you can get the soft copy from college. So that's a very good book by CBSE. The name is Handbook of Inclusive Education. So why I am suggesting this book? Because there are so many materials available in what we call in the internet. So many articles, so many websites, and some or the other things. It is maybe you feel different website has different approach. But when you are working in like India or the state government, any state government. So we need to understand what is the government policy, government of India policy, or the state government policy. So this book is very much in collaboration with the practices of government of India and the state government also. So irrespective of reading the foreign content and all, this book is a good one to understand the inclusive education practice. Okay, so coming back to this article, so in all level we need to provide inclusive education. Inclusive education is not simply putting the child in the mainstream class. Generally we discuss about the inclusive education. The first point which is coming to our mind is that, okay, keep the child in the mainstream class, that is inclusion. No, that is not the inclusion. That is the we can say the physical inclusion. That's the one aspect of that inclusion. Academic inclusion is there, psychological inclusion is there, emotional and behavioral inclusion is there. So inclusion is a 360-degree approach where we need to provide all the support to access the curriculum, the methodology, the pedagogical system, and all the activities which are carried out in a school system. That is basically inclusive education. So putting the child in the classroom, that's the one part. Adapting the curriculum, the another part. Providing reasonable accommodation is the another part. And accessible all the school facility, the sports complex, the library, the cafeteria, the canteen, okay, the hostels, okay. So everything is come under that inclusive education system. And it is not only related to the school education, see, vocational training, adult education, and lifelong learning. So NIOS is the part of the lifelong learning, and the adult education, the part of lifelong learning. There are so many websites which gives opportunity to get some or the other certification courses even after your higher education. If you are a person with above 30, above 40, or above 50, still you can access some or the other educational goals in your life. So inclusive education is a lifelong. Okay, so all the aspect of the education, in different level of the education, the government should take the necessary measures to provide inclusive education. And reasonable accommodation, I told you, in the classroom we need to provide certain accommodations. And next is Article 25, that is health. State parties recognize that persons with disabilities have the right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health without discrimination on the basis of disability. State parties shall take all appropriate measures to ensure access for persons with disabilities to health services that are gender sensitive, including health related rehabilitation. So health after education, or maybe more than education, health is the primary right of person with disabilities, because most of the cases they are basically vulnerable towards some infections, some or the other organ failure. So the government should take the measures to protect the right, the health right of person with disabilities. Okay, to launch different schemes, the programs under health department, that is very important. And in school also, the vaccination and the annual medical checkups, or the monthly medical checkups, or we can have the medical campaigning for the proper certification, medical certification, disability certification, and follow-up actions. Okay, and the recommendation of physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and other therapy facilities, all these come under the health aspect. And Article 26 is related to habilitation and rehabilitation. State parties shall take effective and appropriate measures, including through peer support, to enable persons with disability to attain and maximum independence, full physical, mental, social, and vocational ability, and full inclusion and participation in all aspects of our life. So we need to have a proper habilitation measures, proper rehabilitation measures. The institutes, national level rehabilitation institute, state level rehabilitation institute, regional level rehabilitation institute. Recently we have that our composite regional center in, I think, Malappuram or Kozhikode. So this kind of initiatives the government should take. So why these institutions are very important? Because these institutions can be a centralized agencies. They can work as a centralized agency to provide various rehabilitation measures. Okay, because the person with disability or child with disability or special needs may require different kind of support. Some student need only physiotherapy, some student need both physio and occupational therapy, some needs speech and language therapy, maybe some needs some other therapies like behavioral therapy. So going for different therapy in a different locality, it is very difficult for the parents, and it creates lot of financial burden also. That's why the government they centralizing. They are centralizing. They are keeping, or they are try to provide most of the services in one institute or one centralized institute. So these composite regional centers, these regional rehabilitation institutes, they can provide all the related necessary para-professional support in one roof. Okay, this is an example of measure taken by the state or the central government for rehabilitation or habilitation process. Okay, centralized single window delivery. This is a single window delivery. The next article is work and employment. Work and employment. Right to work on an equal basis with others, work freely, chosen or accepted in a labor market, and work environment that is open, inclusive, and accessible to persons with disabilities. So work condition is again very important. Yes, unfortunately, again, I would use that word like our country, that developing country, we have very less resources to rehabilitate the person under an occasional like a vocational rehabilitation. We can say it is a germinating stage in our country. Still, we are trying to germinate the seed in terms of vocational rehabilitation. Okay, so government must take some or the other measures to successfully rehabilitate the persons in an open work environment. It can be an open work environment, it can be an inclusive work environment, it can be a supportive or sheltered. You must have studied about different kind of vocational training centers: sheltered employment, open employment, inclusive environment. Okay, based on the needs of the person, we need to arrange different kind of environment or opportunities or employment. There is a special employment exchange for person with disabilities. So these are some of the other measures taken by the government. So under the work and the employment, the state shall ensure what are these aspects. One is prohibit discrimination. In any case, there will be no discrimination in the work environment. And protect the rights, including labor and trade union rights. They also have the right to make some organization, some union, the trade union. Okay, because in our country, in every work area, some or the other unions are there. Government employees union, that doctors employees union, teachers employees union, and the medical professionals, nurses employees union, special educators employees union, ASHA workers employees union. So some or the other time, these are very important to get our rights. Okay, so this is equally applicable for the person with disabilities working in any kind of employment setting. Ensure the access to vocational and guidance services. Okay, we need to provide vocational guidance services to the person with disabilities. Maybe they are not having the information regarding the modern vocational facilities or the job categories. So we need to provide the guidance to the person with disabilities to access this information. What are the prominent job in the market? What are the skills which are required for doing a particular job? Especially in the post-pandemic scenario, you can say before 2020 and after 2020, or before pandemic and after pandemic, there is a huge difference in the job market. Okay, so most of the jobs come into an automation. artificial intelligence, Internet of the Things. Okay, now classes, if you search in Google, you will get the classes for almost every part, all the subject, music classes, the foreign language classes, dance classes, drawing classes, art and craft classes. Okay, because now the scenario became changed. We can have the education through online. So based on this online scenario and based on this internet scenario, the 4G, 5G, 6G, which are going to come, so nature of job got also changed. Okay, so according to the change in the job market, we need to provide the right information to the person with disabilities, and we need to help to identify what are the important skill set which I can develop to attain a particular job. You heard about the very famous quote, like you will be hiring by your qualifications, so you will be fired by your behavior, because qualification nowadays the companies, the corporates, or the employer is very least considerations about the qualification. They see the skill set of that person. Do you have that skill set to perform that particular job? Do you have a set of computer knowledge to perform that particular job? Do you have a set of communication skill to execute your role? So these communication skills, these computer skills, these management skills, and personal relation skills, interpersonal relations, intrapersonal relation skills. So these are the skill sets which are required to perform a particular job. Yes, your education qualification is there. That will help you to maybe get a job. For sustaining in that job, the education qualification doesn't matter. That is based on your skill set. So we need to help the person with disabilities or the children with disabilities to identify what are the skill set required to perform a particular job. Okay. That is basically ensure the access to vocational and guidance services and promote work opportunity to include self-employment. The startups are very hot topic nowadays. The startups, the self-employment. So it is not possible to get all the person job under government or any other institutions. So we can have the self-employment. We can start our own business. We can start our own institutions. We can start the small businesses. Okay. So we need to provide, the government need to provide the support to the person with disabilities to develop their self-employment skills, to start a business. Financial aid can be provided. Okay. Technical support can be provided. It is not that you simply give an amount of money to a person and start the business. No, they need some other support, technical support they need. They need information support. Okay, they are ready to do a business and maybe they have money also, but they don't have the technical knowledge. So technical support, financial support, information support, infrastructure support, all this kind of support we need to provide so that the person with disability can start their own business or they can be get into self-employment. Now, ensure reasonable accommodation in the workplace is the open workplace is very competitive. So we need to provide some or the other accommodations, or we can develop an inclusive work environment. Promote professional rehabilitation and job retention and return to work programs. When compared with the PWD Act, the RPWD Act, it is increased the percentage of reservation for person with disabilities. Okay, that is the one measure taken by the government to ensure the jobs for the person with disabilities. And it is mandatory if a bulk of vacancies are advertising by government or the non-government organization. The categorization is very important. How many posts reserved for the person with disabilities? Under the person with disabilities, for VI category, how many? The HI category, how many? And maybe the physical category, how many posts are created. Okay, so this kind of measures we need to continue for protecting the job retention. Okay, so these are some mandatory protocol we need to follow under the article work and employment. The next article, Article 28, adequate standard of living and social. We already discussed this concept in previous slides. And Article 29, participation in political and public life. This is very important. State parties shall guarantee to persons with disabilities political right and the opportunity to enjoy them on an equal basis with others. If somebody want to participate in electoral politics, to become a panchayat member, to become a municipal member, to become a MLA or MP. So they should also get an equal opportunity. And even political parties can take some measures to empower the people, those who are from this community, because there are so many members are registered workers in different parties. There are so many people, they are not registered workers, but they are the followers, and they also want to pursue some or the other leadership post. So the government can also make the some or the other policies to ensure the participation of person with disability in all the hierarchy of government, in parliament, okay, in Lok Sabha, in Raj Sabha, or in the municipal corporation, in Panchayat. We need to ensure the participation of the person with disabilities. Article 30, participation in cultural life, recreation, leisure and sports. Okay, state parties recognize the right of person with disabilities to take part on an equal basis with others in cultural life, and shall take all appropriate measures to ensure that person with disabilities. Okay, so this also is very important. I mentioned in the previous slide when we discussed about the barrier-free environment. Nowadays, the movies, theaters are transformed into mall and INOX, these different movie halls. Okay, so and the shopping malls are the center of the recreational activities. Okay, and parks are there, water theme parks are there. So this barrier-free environment, if you provide the barrier-free environment, with the help of that barrier-free environment, they can also be participate the cultural activities happen in that area, recreational activities happen in that place, leisure activities happen in that place, sports activities happen in that place. For example, there is a stadium, and one person with disability, he or she is a huge fan of Kerala Blasters or any other cricket team or IPL fan, and he want to go to a particular stadium to watch that match, live match, cricket match, volleyball match, football match, whatever the match. But in that stadium, if there is no ramp, if there is no facility to take the wheelchair person into that gallery, then that part is not inclusive. That stadium is not inclusive. That stadium is not disabled friendly. Okay, so wherever the recreation is happening, wherever the leisure activities are happening, there should be a
Hello, sir. Delegates, please report if there is a connectivity issue with the speaker. Are you able to hear him?
No.
Sorry for the inconvenience. The speaker will connect back in a minute. Thanks for your patience. Dear delegates, it seems like a connectivity issue. We are speaking to the speaker. He will connect back in a minute.
Meeting disconnect ആയിരുന്നു. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible now.
Okay. Okay. 1 second. So should I repeat any of the slide which I missed?
Can you put on the slide, sir?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me share.
No, you were speaking about the previous slide, sir.
Okay, this one.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And can you help me out which article I missed?
Yes, sir. You were speaking about the second article.
In political and public life.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, the participants, some technical glitches. Okay, so Article 29 is basically the participation in political and public life. Okay, political and public life means every person with disabilities should have the opportunity to become any of the member in Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha, or in even a Panchayat member or a member in municipality. Okay, they should get the opportunity to take part in the electoral politics and take a lead a public life. Okay, so government should take some measure to ensure the participation of the people in various hierarchy of government system, in Rajya Sabha, in Lok Sabha, in municipal corporation, in Panchayat, district, Jilla Panchayat, wherever possible, the government should take the measures to ensure the participation of persons with disabilities. The last one is participation in cultural life, recreation, leisure, and sports. Okay, this is very important because human being is always wanted to enjoy our life, and the enjoyment is possible not only as a person. The enjoyment can be possible as a society, as a community. Okay, sometimes we can simply sit and watch one video or the movie alone in your home, but it's not possible always. If you are doing so in all the time, means you are lacking your social life. Okay, so social life is the togetherness. We need to engage ourselves into the society, our fellow beings. Okay, so cultural life is nothing but we need to interact with other people, and we can interact with the people in different way. One is professional way, being a teacher, being a student. In the professional way we can interact with other, but what in this article is not a professional relationship, it's a kind of recreational relationship, leisure activity, take part in the leisure activity, sports. Okay, so in society we know there are some places which are mainly reserved for some or the other recreation activities. For example, movie theater, shopping malls, water theme park. Okay, and some or the other multi-purpose halls, theaters, drama facilities, or open air auditoriums. Okay, sports complexes. Okay, these are the places where we can go and enjoy our cultural life, enjoy the recreation activities, enjoy the sports facilities. So government should take the measures to ensure the participation of the person with disabilities in all these aspects, in their cultural life, in their recreational life, their leisure activities and sports. So one important measure government can take that is barrier-free environment. If somebody want to go to a mall to attend some or the other function, to watch the movie, so the parking should be there, wheelchair pathway should be there, and handrails should be there, disability toilet should be there, and the different kind of seating facilities should be there. Okay, and we can say the lift. If the person is blind, so braille numbers, messages in braille, and signages. Okay, the pathways, the people can walk with their walking stick or the crutches. Okay, so all kind of disabled friendly facilities we should provide in the to promote the cultural life, to promote the recreation activities, to promote the leisure activities, to promote the sports activities. Okay, integrated sports activity is the one of the hot topic under NEP, National Education Policy. Now in this year onwards, all the government, all the schools need to promote the National Education Policy. In National Education Policy, it is mentioned integrated sports. What is integrated sports? Sports integrated education. So sports integrated education is a core aspect of inclusive education. And adapted sports, because our sports are very rigid in the sense football, cricket, basketball, whatever the sports are there, the children with special needs are not able to participate as per the traditional rules. So we need to accommodate the rules, we need to adapt the rules, we need to change or modify the rules so that the person with disabilities or the children with disabilities can participate in that sports activity. Okay, so infrastructure is very important when we talk about the cultural life, when we talk about the participation in the recreation, leisure and sports activities. Okay, so that is the final article which I would like to discuss here with you. And there are so many other articles also in the document, and that articles are related to the administrative part of UNCRPD. For example, how we can collaborate with other countries. Being a signatory, how India can collaborate with America, how India can collaborate with Australia, or how Kerala state can collaborate with Tamil Nadu, how Tamil Nadu state can collaborate with New Punjab. So these are the some technical keys or the administrative things mentioned in some or the other articles. That's why I did not take that article to discuss in this forum. I mentioned the articles which are related, very much related to the education sector, rehabilitation sector, and the medical sector. Okay, so this is all about my presentation. These are my references. Website United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs Disability, website Australian Human Rights Commission, website Punarbha, the National Interactive Web Portal on Disability, it is from India, and website Physiopedia. Okay, and you can check that document which I mentioned. I will be sharing that document also, so you can go through this website to understand more about this UNCRPD. So for concluding, it was a very important step taken by United Nations to promote and protect the rights of the person with disabilities. And being a signatory, India, we ratified this protocol, and we took a lot of legislative aspect to implement the UNCRPD. RPWD Act is the result of implementation of the UNCRPD. Thank you so much for keeping yourself, be patient to listen me. And now ma'am said that we can have some question answer section and all, but I don't think I can, and maybe I may not be able to answer some of your questions. So rather I would prefer we can have a discussion based on the presentation. You can put your thoughts, you can put your opinion. You can discuss your opinion regarding this UNCRPD and regarding our presentation also, and you can reflect on and you can express your thoughts. Okay, so this may be the 15 or 20 minutes.
Hello, sir. I think the speaker has lost connection again. Delegates, please wait until he connects back. Delegates, please make sure that your microphones are muted when we are in the session. And delegates are encouraged to ask your questions or type it in the chat box. We bring to you the best experts in the field, so please feel free to ask your questions. I see some of the participants have raised their hands. Please unmute your mic and ask your question. If no questions, you can express your thoughts on the class. You can even express what you have learned from the session. You can express your thoughts in it, of it. Please unmute to speak, dear delegates.
You have all the right. According to you, not only the UNCRPD, you have all the right to share your views, your thoughts, your queries, your concern while we interact with the children with special needs, while we teaching the children with special needs. I can see there are so many hand raised.
Yes, delegates, you may ask your questions. The delegates have raised their hands. You may unmute to speak.
Can they unmute from their side?
Yeah, yes, sir, yes.
Okay. Okay, somebody is putting there in chat. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And clarified. Thank you, sir.
So some of them are even asking for your contact number. Delegates, please make sure your microphones are muted. Delegates, please mute your microphones. Sir, I think there are no questions because your presentation was so in detail and clear. Sir, are you there? Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, please. Yes,
Okay,
you
sir.
are audible.
Sir, I think there are no questions because your presentation was so clear and so in detail. Thank you, sir. It was such an in-depth explanation on UNCRPD. We are happy and moreover proud to have you here today. As an alumni of the same college, we are so proud to see you and we hope to host you again. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for taking out the time
that's a
to join
privilege
us.
for.
Pleasure is ours, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sir, before we end the session,
Some of the
can we...
participants,
Yes, sir?
yeah, some of the participants, they ask for my phone number. So
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
don't
sir.
have an issue. You can share the phone number. Whatever the queries or maybe related to any other aspect, they can call me, and with my best of my knowledge, I can help. I can help there, and I can guide there.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your gesture, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, before we end the session, can we all pose for a photograph? Dear delegates, can you all please switch on your video camera so that we can pose for a photograph? Delegates, please switch on your video camera. Delegates, please switch on your video camera so that we shall take a photo. Thank you, dear delegates. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Thank you so much for the in-depth presentation, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Cyrils have shared his phone number in the chat box. The delegates may make a note of it. The speaker has sent his phone number via the chat box. You can make a note of it, dear delegates. Dear delegates, with that, we come to an end to the second day sessions of the 3 days international webinar series on social security and legal aspects in disability rehabilitation, organized and conducted by Sneha Sadan College of Special Education in collaboration with Rehabilitation Council of India. Please make sure to send back the filled Google evaluation forms by 5 p.m. IST. And also, please note that we will begin our next session tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. IST. Please join us at 10 a.m. IST tomorrow for the first session. We will be having 2 sessions tomorrow, one on legal rights of the persons with disabilities by Ms. Srilada, Special Educator, Richland One School, District Columbia, South Carolina, USA, and the other on psychological well-being of abused by Father Toby Joseph, Director, Atmamitra Samiksha Campus, Kaladi, Kerala. Dear delegates, please make sure that you log in by 10 a.m. IST. Thank you all for joining us today. Thanks for cooperation. Thanks for your patience. Have a good evening.